across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
There you are. Good afternoon and welcome to Drive Time right here on Talk. I'm Kevin O'Sullivan and I'll be your host for 3 thrilling hours of news, views and topical debate. Get on the show, get on the phone and call me on 03444 499 1000, or you can WhatsApp voice note me on the same number and I promise to play your message out. That's 03444 499 1000. Let's talk. It's good to talk on Talk. It's Tuesday, July the 8th. Here's what's coming up. We keep hearing about the poor victims of the rapists and sex offenders having to cope with the early release of the vile men who assaulted them. In his first question at PMQs today, Tory James Cleverly asked Deputy Prime Minister David Lammy if he would apologise to the terrified women whose rapists are being let out by the Labour government. Lammy declined to say sorry. Why? Well, today I will talk to a brave lady who has waived her right to anonymity to speak out against a system that means the monster who raped her when she was a child will soon be free to walk the streets. She shouldn't have to live in fear like this, should she? Women all across the country shouldn't have to live like this, should they? 03444 499 1000. In other news, the Nigel Farage psychodrama continues apace after all the main parties left him stranded to fight the Clacton by-election alone against no opposition apart from the formidable Count Binface. With the Clacton calamity turning into a pointless farce, has yesterday's bold Farage sensation turned into today's Farage fiasco? That is the question. 03444 499 1000. Also on today's action-packed show, a new report and poll reveal that 2 in 5 Brits believe there is no chance of the Muslim community properly integrating ever. And more than half the country thinks that national identity is disappearing thanks to our obsession with diversity. What's your view? 03444 499 1000. Meanwhile, as the Daily Mail group gloats after its total triumph over pathetic Prince Harry and his gullible showbiz pals, what possessed the King's son to pursue a cause so lost that the High Court Judge, Mr Justice Nicholas, dismissed all 97 allegations of the newspaper's journalist phone hacking and using illegal methods to gather information? Does old Gingernup still see himself as a courageous dragon slayer taking on the evil media? If so, how's that working out for him? I'm going to speak to one of the male journalists who Harry basically said, no idea who she is, I don't think I've ever met her. And then it was revealed that he was quite close to her and they were sending each other, so we say, quite flirty messages. Her name's Charlotte Griffiths, excellent journalist. She was a diary editor of the Mail on Sunday. Now she's editor-at-large, I do believe. She, along with all the other male journalists who found themselves in the dock over this long-running case, have been put through hell by a series of lurid allegations for which neither Harry nor any of his showbiz cohorts had even a scintilla of evidence to prove. That's outrageous. We'll talk to Charlotte later. Plus, Donald Trump's wild antics at the NATO summit, furiously lashing into Spain for not paying its way on defence spending and calling Iranians scum while announcing the ceasefire was over. Shock news statistics also revealing that for every, this is back home here now, for every foreign care worker granted a work visa, an average of 15 family members come to Britain with them. How ridiculous is that? 03444 499 1000. And finally, the BBC is begging Hugh Edwards to pay back the £200,000 salary he received after being charged with child sex offences. They're begging for that money back again. since he won't do it, since he won't pay them back, why doesn't the state broadcaster grow a pair and sue Hugh? Get that money back through legal processes. Do it. Why don't they do that? 03444991000. All that and so much more. So don't go anywhere. Stick with me right here, right now on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Let's spend Wednesday afternoon together. Let's go straight over to my first guest. He is the Senior Fellow at the New Culture Forum, Philip Kisley. Welcome, Philip.
Hi, Kev. Great to see you.
Pleasure to have you on the show. Lots to talk about today, but let's quickly cast our eye at the increasingly farcical situation involving Nigel Farage. For a few hours yesterday, I mean, I was impressed. I thought, man, he has really seized back the initiative, resigning his seat in Clacton and saying, I put myself at the mercy of the people of Clacton. They can decide on whether or not they think I've done anything wrong, whether or not they have a bad opinion of me receiving £5 million free from crypto billionaire Christopher Harborne, or my dealings with the guy they call Posh George Cottrell, and his various financial affairs. He said, I'm going to let the people of Clacton decide. What he didn't bargain for was all the main parties just saying, well, we're not going to play. We're not going to stand candidates here. So now the only person that he will face in opposition is the formidable Count Binface, the guy who goes around with a dustbin on his head. So this by-election in Clacton will now be empty to the point of farce. What will he prove getting voted back in uncontested? And if a campaign is got together for Count Binface, it could be that Count Binface will dent Nigel's majority, which will be embarrassing. Well, first of all, let's have a look, before I get your view, Philip, let's have a listen to Nigel Farage speaking in Clacton, for which he is no longer the MP, having resigned yesterday. This is him speaking in Clacton earlier today.
Number one, I have nothing to apologise for at all. I haven't broken the law in any way at all, and I'm firmly of the belief, backed up by strong legal opinion, that I have not broken Parliament's rules either. However, as a result of constantly being referred and complained about, it now would appear from the media pylon and from the political party pylon that I'm guilty of virtually everything. I'm being painted out to the people in this constituency, frankly, as being a crook. Well, I'll tell you what, I don't think Sky News or anybody else should be my judge. I think the voters here in Clacton should have that opportunity. And as for the other parties, you know, the Conservatives got over 30,000 votes here in 2019. They don't want to stand. They know, well, you know why? Because they'd lose and lose badly.
There is one person who's bold enough to stand against Nigel Farage in this upcoming by-election, which has just been ratified by the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rachel from Accounts. That's her job. She's the one who gives by-elections the go-ahead, the Chancellor of the Exchequer. She's just done that and says if Nigel Farage wants to spend the summer debating against a man with a tin can on his head, that's his affair. But let's listen to Farage's only opposition, Count Binface.
They can choose to run away from my beneficence and magnificence, or maybe they just noticed that Nigel is up to a rather peculiar hissy fit, and they're keeping their powder dry for a second by-election when, of course, the parliamentary committee reports. But interesting, you see, the thing is, that second election, which would cost 380 grand, will only happen if Nigel wins this one. So if you vote Binface, you save the British taxpayer £380,000 without me doing anything.
That's Count Binface. The O is optional, by the way, but that'll get me in trouble. He does make the Count does make a good point. What's going to happen now, in my view, Philip? This will happen. Nigel Farage will, in essence, contest Clacton in a vacuum. no real opposition, will be voted back in. Meanwhile, the Parliamentary Standards Office will sit in judgment of whether or not he's broken the rules, accepting money, allegedly, in the 12 months before he became an MP in 2024. My guess is they'll find him guilty. My guess is they'll suspend him for long enough to trigger another by-election, at which all the other parties will throw the kitchen sink. They'll get involved in that. They've all said that. When he is forced to call a by-election, then we will contest him. So all in all, for a few hours yesterday, I thought Farage looked very impressive, had sort of regained the initiative, but it doesn't look good now. It looks like a joke.
Well, it certainly hasn't gone the way he thought it would go. But I mean, you know, he's standing against Count Binface. That's got to be better than standing against the Labour Party. You know, cleaner and more ideas, I would say. I don't think we should write him off too soon, because he is a master manipulator of the narrative, isn't he? We talk about politics in terms of stories, don't we? And who wields the narrative, who controls the narrative. And as you said, and I felt yesterday, I thought he was fantastic yesterday. It was an heroic speech.
Agreed.
It was beautifully constructed. He brought all the strands together with those very simple words, the people versus the establishment. Now, I get everything you're saying, Kev, about the longer term, but people will also bear in mind, and it will sink in, that the establishment haven't even turned up to the fight. And you can say all of the, because they won't dignify it with a response and all of that kind of thing. And I get that, and maybe there's something to that. But also, they are frightened. They would be beaten hands down. Everybody would be beaten hands down. So that's the reason they're not turning up. And of course, they're laughing at him. Fair enough. Okay. But they're also laughing at us as well. They're laughing at the process. They are not engaging with the process. And it feels as though, yes, they've very, very quickly managed to get the upper hand, although it's only a few people online who are laughing. I mean, most of the country won't really be aware of the ins and outs. Yes, they've got the upper hand at the moment, but, Nigel's been at this a very, very long time. He is a master manipulator of politics and the narrative. He will be back, and I suspect that given time will help him, because people will realise how contemptible these people are by not coming up to the mark and standing against it.
I mean, I don't doubt for a second the establishment, as it were, are out to get him. That's what happens with insurgents. They get very, very uppity, and they start saying, well, these people must be crushed. That's what's happening to Farage now. There's no doubt about it. And people go, oh, he's the victim of a stitch-up, an establishment stitch-up. Yeah. Not the first and won't be the last. That's what happens in this country. Reform and Nigel Farage, though, have got to get real about it. It isn't, in my view, it isn't good enough saying, oh, the people of Claxon can decide on my finances. What about the rest of the country? And exactly what will they be deciding if there are no opponents apart from Count Binface? It is something of an empty, almost farcical situation. And as I say, my guess would be later in the summer he's going to have to fight another by-election. So he seized the initiative yesterday, 1-0 to Nigel and Reform. I'm afraid today you have to say, in all honesty, it's 1-1. The establishment have hit back quite effectively.
Yeah, absolutely. And I couldn't agree more. But it depends what he's got in his pocket, doesn't it? You know what I mean? It was interesting listening to his speech yesterday, and he was talking about how he was physically attacked. I actually wasn't aware of that particular instance that he was talking about, where his car was written off. I just wonder how much more of that kind of stuff, those stories, because he will deal in stories here. I wonder how much more of that stuff he's got in the bank, and how he will potentially use I think one thing has happened here, Kev, is that Sky News, I mean, they've been dying for years, haven't they? But they are really dead in the water now, and they've come out of this appallingly. I think any thinking person would think that that it wouldn't have anything to do with Sky News after this. And yes, people are going for Nigel because he's a unique figure in politics. He's it's difficult, isn't it? Because the left hate him, and the left have always hated him, and nobody on the left will forgive him for Brexit. But the people on the far right hate him as well. So he's getting it from everywhere.
Because the Tories hate him as well. So
the Tories,
the centre right hate him. They all hate him. They're out to get him. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, but that really speaks to, for me, the power of the man and his ability to work the British public, and actually what he's saying now. I mean, I'm coming across here as a massive fanboy. I'm not actually, but I've been more impressed with reform over the last year or so, or over the last 18 months. I think they're getting it together in terms of policy. I think they're being a little bit more hardline. I think they're meeting the demands of the British public. And we've got to bear in mind all the other stuff. We've got to bear in mind Makerfield. We've got to bear in mind Burnham, what happened there. If we do the classic thing, which is focus on criticising Nigel all the time, and yes, there is lots to criticise. I'm not saying there isn't. But if we focus on that and we focus myopically on this particular thing, we forget about the broader context. We forget about what the Labour Party is doing to the country. We forget the fact that really, what do the Tories have to offer? She could say that he's throwing a hissy fit, but what can she give in his place? I'm not sure she can actually give anything. So we do have to bear in mind that broader goal of where we want the country to go. And as I say, yes, he's got his faults. And, I want to know more about what's been going on with finances. But now, dealing with the evidence in front of me, I want reform to survive and prosper, because nobody else can.
I couldn't agree more. There are an energetic, invigorating, and I think essential addition to our political panorama. But our political panorama, the political elites, they do not like insurgents, and they try to crush them, and they use very, very dirty methods. Reform are accusing the National Crime Agency of colluding with certain elements of the media, particularly The Guardian, to release details of financial transactions between Farage and various individuals, and Richard Tice. Revelations are appearing as we speak. All I'm saying is that Reform and Farage, Richard Tice, they better have their defences ready, because the establishment is on the march, and there is nothing more ruthless or frightening than that. Quick question before you go, to change the topic just briefly, Philip. The Office of Budget Responsibility, the government's sort of financial advisors, have revealed that Andy Burnham needs £120 billion fast to avoid Britain's debt spiralling into crisis. We are very close to the tipping point where we might have to go to the IMF to be bailed out. So bad is our debt burden. I think it runs into trillions. He needs to find £120 billion fast. He won't cut the welfare bill, will he? And none of that. He's going to raise our taxes, isn't he?
It's tax and spend, isn't it? And he won't be able to do it. And we are going to... You and I have talked about this on several occasions, and I've talked about it all over the place. Tax and spend will do for us in the end, and we are seeing that. The Labour Party, who have no idea about business, have no idea about investment, have no idea about entrepreneurship. They do not know what makes this country tick. They do, what we call alarm clock Britain. They've got no idea about it. All they can do is take money off people. And it's just not enough. It won't work. It never has worked in the past, and it never will work now. So again, this is something we need to bear in mind. We have a socialist idiot who has no experience of business whatsoever. As Farage said yesterday, we have a cabinet at the moment. Not one of them has
ever
any
world in the real world.
Yeah,
it's
so
just amazing.
This is so worrying that we really do. Again, we really need to focus on this and think, what the hell are we going to do? Because what the British people need to do, they need to pressurise, they need to push, they need to lobby, actually to save ourselves. We've begun to do that, haven't we, with various kind of judicial processes and decisions which have been absolutely awful. Now we need to think about economics. That is a gargantuan challenge, and it's terrifying, actually, to look into the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Andy Burnham's going to tax us. He was waffling on last week about, I think there's some wriggle room in the manifesto. I've been looking at this, so I think I might be able to tax warehouses on the outsides of cities. Oh, big deal. I'll tell you who he's going to tax. Us. Yeah. He has to find money fast, and he's going to tax us. We are going to get our taxes hiked as sure as night follows day. Philip, got to move on, but great to talk to you as always. The excellent senior fellow at the New Culture Forum, Philip Kisley there. Next up, Trevor Kavanagh, the Sun's political commentator, will join me. We'll talk more about Farage. Has yesterday's Farage sensation turned into today's Farage fiasco? 03444991000. Trevor next. Stay tuned.
The thing that most makes me angry about Keir Starmer talking about the need to defend our country, and he's gone out of his way to not make the tough decisions to actually do the thing to defend our nation. It's cowardly, and I think it's treacherous.
Nothing to say on immigration, nothing to say on benefits, nothing to say on jobs, nothing to say on tax. Absolutely appalling. If this is the solution the country's been waiting for, then we are in a very, very bad place.
People up and down the country are asking why they are always being put second. They work every day, they get up, they pay their bills, they look after their kids, and yet the other side of the social contract is not being held up.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
In a little while, we'll be dealing with this story. A new report and poll reveals that nearly half the nation believes that Muslims can never integrate into Britain, and more than half of Brits believe that our national identity is disappearing due to the obsession with diversity. That next, but where do you stand on that? Let me know, 03444991000. But first, let's go over to former political editor and now current political columnist at the Sun newspaper, Trevor Kavanagh. Welcome, Trevor.
Good afternoon. May I say I agree with both of those surveys.
Yeah, exactly. Well, perhaps we'll have a quick chat about that in just a second. But my question of the day to the audience, and let's see, you can answer it in your erudite fashion, Trevor. Has yesterday's Farage sensation, when he definitely grasped the nettle, seized the initiative and said, right, I'm resigning as Clacton MP and I'm going to have a by-election based on the people of Clacton deciding whether or not they want me in view of my financial affairs, and they'll make the decision. Has that sensation turned into today's Farage fiasco, now that all the main parties are saying we're not going to stand against him? Something rather farcical about the situation now. What's your take on it?
Well, I would start by saying that you can never write Nigel Farage off, as we've learned very much to his benefit over recent years. But it does look like this might well be the end of the road for both him and for reform. The situation is that he's walked into a self-created trap here. He has called a snap by-election, but the timing of that by-election is not in his control. It rests entirely in the hands of the Prime Minister of the day, who in the very near future apparently is going to be someone called Andy Burnham. Yeah. Now, that is absolutely pivotal, because custom and practice suggests that it would be within 3 weeks, but there's nothing set in concrete on this, and he could delay it for as long as he likes, say 6 months, until perhaps he's ready for a general election, in which case Nigel Farage is simply swallowed up in that melee.
Yeah. Hello?
Hello, yes, I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, I'm listening, yeah. So yes, but he, the prospect now, I mean, the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, has announced that, yes, this election triggered by Farage's resignation will take place, and she said something like, well, if Nigel Farage wants to spend the summer debating with a man with a tin can on his head, Count Bimface, then he can go right ahead. The point is that you know, yesterday's initiative, he looked great. It all looks a bit ridiculous now. I mean, this by-election, for better or worse, will be Nigel Farage against Count Bimface. That isn't going to achieve anything. That's just pointless, isn't it?
Well, I think also there's an added touch of humiliation here, because, I mean, he'll be talking to himself. There will be precious little coverage of the events during the period of the by-election by media broadcasters who have no love for Nigel Farage in the first place. Secondly, I think there's another point which Kemi Badenoch has raised, which is that the Standards Committee, which is investigating this £5 million loan from a cryptocurrency billionaire, has yet to report. And you could have a by-election followed by another by-election if indeed that report fails to vindicate Nigel Farage. So the whole thing is a terrible mess. And I don't think, frankly, that Nigel comes out of it as well as he might have hoped, because the revelations aren't muck-raising. They are not scurrilous conduct on the part of his enemies or a conspiracy dreamed up by the media. These are facts which are pertinent to the public's judgment of Nigel Farage's character as a would-be Prime Minister of this country. When you start mixing with people who deal in cryptocurrency, you are already using, or should be using, a very long spoon, because there is an inextricable link between this shadowy world of crypto and the organised crime world in which uses it to launder their cash.
Yeah, and I think there was something sort of ham-fisted about his proposition, which was this, you know, yeah, I took this money and I'm going to let the people of Clacton decide whether that was right or wrong. And it seems to be his trail of thought that somehow or other this would stop the investigation by the Parliamentary Standards Office. Well, of course it hasn't. I mean, although that investigation has been announced, I don't think it's very far advanced. And certainly they've now got the posh George Cottrell element, which they've announced they'll look into as well. So my suggestion of what the chronology will be, and I do think it's a bit of a stitch-up, but it'll be this, that they will let him fight this by-election uncontested except by Count Bimface, which is going to be a ludicrous farce that nobody will pay much attention to, then they'll come forward and say, well, you've failed. I'm sorry, you're guilty of breaking parliamentary rules in the 12 months leading up to you becoming an MP, so we are going to suspend you for more than 2 weeks, and therefore that triggers another by-election. So he'll I suspect that... So you're right, he has put himself in a position where, if you like, the Westminster establishment can use him almost as their plaything. For yesterday's initiative seized is today's initiative lost, I think.
Yes, and I think we've learned from yesterday's High Court ruling into the Prince Harry saga that you need to deal with facts in this. And there's precious little dispute, as far as I can see, about the facts of the case. This cryptocurrency billionaire did indeed give Nigel Farage £5 million, which he refuses to explain or justify except in the vaguest possible terms. This guy, Posh George, or George Cottrell,
yep.
Is also a very shady figure who is renowned as a gambling addict who is prepared to wager many millions at a time in a casino sitting. He is also subsidizing some of the luxury accommodation of Nigel Farage. None of that is actually disputed. It has all been unearthed by a free press. And I think this is the crucial consideration Nigel Farage has failed to take into account. These are not the works of scurrilous opponents, of which there are certainly many. This is the work of investigative journalists who Nigel Farage has benefited from in the past on his own account.
Absolutely. It's a fascinating situation. Well, let's get your quick take, if you don't mind. I'm going to do this story next. But what is your take, Trevor, on this extraordinary report and poll that reveals that 2 in 5 Brits think integration of the Muslim community simply is never going to happen? And more than half of British people are convinced that our national identity is disappearing due to the obsession with diversity. What's your take?
I'm surprised it's not much higher. And were they to have a poll of British citizens that didn't include Muslim voters, you might find it is actually higher. I mean, look, it's indisputable that the multicultural game has been a total disaster, not just for Britain, but indeed for the Muslim community, because they are seen as now the pariahs in our society who are trying to dominate our social life, our economic life, and indeed our welfare life. It's an animosity which can only come to a bad end, frankly.
Yeah, obviously the Muslim community would say we're not trying to dominate our lives, but we're going to discuss that next. And good to get your opinion on that, Trevor. And thank you very much for your expert views on the to use that increasing cliche, the Nigel Farage psychodrama, because it sure as hell is. Good to have you on the show, Trevor. Thank you very much. Trevor Kavanagh there, former political editor of The Sun. Next up, as I say, we will talk about this major report suggesting that a lot of people in Britain, nearly half the people in Britain, just don't believe that integration of the Muslim community can ever succeed. Also, that diversity is destroying our national identity. That next, stay tuned.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. As I say, there's a new report out. It is being compiled by Sarah Khan. She was a former counter-extremism commissioner. She's come up with this snappily named report. You're going to love this. It's called Britain Under Strain, the Broken Social Contract, Democratic Distrust and the Mainstreaming of Extremism. That one's going to fly off the shelves, isn't it? But it is important. This has entailed a poll which has revealed that, as I say, 2 out of 5 Brits, 2 out of every 5 Brits believe that the Muslim community, Muslims can never integrate into Britain. That's a poll by the More in Common company. And also that more than half of Brits believe that our national identity is disappearing, is being obliterated due to our obsession with diversity. Let me know what you think about that. 0344 499 1000. Trevor Kavanagh was just commenting, he thinks that we do have a problem. Do you think we have a problem? Do we have a problem with the integration of our Muslim community? One of the things that Sarah Khan says, that the findings of the poll clashes with her research, which indicates that 85% of British Muslims favour full integration into the country. I'm thinking there's 4 million Muslims in this country. What about the 15%? That's 600,000 people. So do we have 600,000 Muslims living in this country who are totally against integration? If so, then I wonder what Sarah Khan thinks about that. Let's go over to journalist Khadija Khan, get her view. Welcome to the show, Khadija.
Thank you so much, Karen, for having me.
Always good to have you on the show. Now, what do you make of this survey by Sarah Khan, former counter-extremism commissioner? Now, as I say, it's snappily called, wait for it, Britain Under Strain, the Broken Social Contract, Democratic Distrust and the Mainstreaming of Extremism. But in this, it encompasses a poll by the More in Common polling company, revealing that 2 out of 5 Brits believe Muslim integration can never happen, and that more than half of Brits believe that our national identity is disappearing due to our obsession with diversity. As an expert on the Muslim community, do you think that 2 in 5 Brits are right to suspect that our Islamic friends can never properly integrate?
Kevin, this needs to be made clear that a majority of Muslims in the UK lead ordinary lives just like anyone else. They enjoy rights and freedoms and liberties that many would find unimaginable in a Muslim majority country. However, there exists a vocal and assertive and influential minority within Muslim communities which can't be underestimated. These are the individuals who seek to create division in the society, and they are doing it quite comfortably, taking a cover of democratic, values. They seek to bring Islamic blasphemy laws in Britain through the back door. This group has fostered sectarianism. This is not a group, actually. These are a group of individuals, you can say. They have fostered sectarianism. They have demanded the protection of outdated, archaic practices such as cousin marriage. They have instilled fears of non-existent persecution among British Muslims. Not long ago, an application was submitted for a political party called the Party of Islam. Thankfully, this application was rejected because the fear was that it does not comply with election laws. And then there is an independent candidate alliance at the moment that has allowed some individuals to be elected based on foreign agendas.
We have MPs for
sectarianism.
Gaza. We have about
Yes.
seven.
Islamic identity, attempting to create further divisions in the country. And this was evident in Birmingham, where a de facto ban was imposed on Maccabi fans, and certain areas were turned into no-go zones for Jewish people. Now, these individuals, they have painted all British Muslims as a monolithic bloc. In doing so, they have politicized both their religion and the presence of Muslims in the country. Sadly, they have become the face of the Muslim communities here in this country, overshadowing the vast majority who live peacefully and contribute positively to society. And I think this is called Islamic populism. And it is right for the people to be wary of the situation. In fact, many Muslims are concerned about these developments in this country at this moment.
Yeah, this is what I find. You see, that's a very good point. We must stress that, you know, majority of Muslims, of course, you know, are pretty integrated, but there are some who don't seem to be very keen on it. And certainly a lot of British people think that a lot of Muslims aren't keen on integration. That may not be fair. But Sarah Khan, who compiled this report, sort of hitting back at the polls findings that, you know, so many Brits sort of distrust the concept of integration of the Muslim community. She said that her research indicates that 85% of British Muslims favour full integration. Well, so far, so good. But the question I would ask, and just did, is what about the 15% who don't believe in integration? That adds up to about 600,000 people. So according to Sarah Khan's research, there are 600,000 Muslims in this country who do not believe in integrating. That is extremely worrying, and we should address that fast.
I appreciate the fact that Sarah Khan is, talking about these issues related to integration and assimilation within the Muslim community, and how many Muslims they are willing to integrate, and they see it as a positive step. But of course, as you have just mentioned, that there is a certain percentage of people who don't want to integrate in mainstream British society. And I think expecting the Prime Minister to take effective action against these growing divisions and hate in our society, it's a naive thought, in my opinion, because we need to be honest about these issues, because these issues are not taking place in a vacuum. There are various factors contributing to the rise of such sentiments and further divisions in our communities. It is easy to simply blame the far right and state that extremist views are being exploited and promoted by hostile states. But this approach does not address the core issue. There was a time when British politicians, they capitalized on religious sentiments to win over Muslim votes, as both the Labour and Conservative parties. They did it for many, many years, tapping into the grievances of the electorate during their campaigns. But now there are prominent Muslim activists, politicians, who have formed a political bloc to gain leverage, to gain political leverage. And we cannot ignore these factors, that there is a sizable minority within the Muslim communities who are very keen on,
on segregation. They do not want to integrate, and I think that is what we have to worry about. Khadija, it's always great to have you on the show. Thank you so much. That's journalist Khadija Khan. Just to put her into context, she obviously was born in Pakistan, brought up in very strict Muslim circumstances. I believe was beaten by her father because she didn't want to wear the hijab. She now rejects all of that, and as you can hear, is a intelligent critic of the more extreme elements of the Muslim community. Let's go to break, and when we come back, we're going to talk to a very brave young lady called Jade Belgrove. She is a rape victim. She was raped by a friend of the family when she was a child. She's 30 years old now. The two rapes happened when she was 14, and the man who raped her is going to be released, early release, by the government in September. You can imagine how she feels about this. So, Jade Belgrove, she has a right to anonymity, but has decided to reveal her identity to make this point. She's disgusted with this government for releasing the man who ruined her life, ruined her childhood and ruined her life. He's going to get out early in September. How do you think Jade feels? She must be furious. Let's find out after the break.
Good morning to you. This is Towards the Home of Common Sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Just breaking news in the last couple of moments. Extraordinary news. Not just that the police have arrived at the Sandringham estate where Prince Andrew, as was now Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, is currently living since being thrown out of the Windsor estate. The police have arrested Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. It's an extraordinary revelation. And certainly what's been contained in the Epstein files as released in the last few weeks. It's his 66th birthday today. What a birthday present that is.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's go straight over to my next guest. She has a harrowing story to tell. When she was a child, she was raped by a friend, a so-called friend of her family. 2 rapes when she was 14. As she says, that's left her with a life sentence. And she grieves for the child she could have been. Her life has been, completely changed by this, and the guy who did this to her, a monster called Simon Tyler, he was 24 at the time. He raped her twice when she was 14. He was jailed for 9 years in November 2024. Of course, in the manner of these things, he would have been released in 2030 after just 6 years. Not nearly a long enough sentence, if you ask me, but that's a different issue. Now he's going to be released in September under the early release scheme of this Labour government to clear out overcrowded prisoners. I'm sure that's great solace to my next guest. She's child rape survivor Jade Belgrove. Jade, thank you so much for coming on. Can you... Well, I've read the interview that you gave to The Telegraph, and it's very moving. Before we get into the mechanics of this, the fact that this guy is going to be released obscenely early, just go through that again, if you don't mind. Tell us what this has done to you, what this did to you when you were 14 years old.
It completely changed the trajectory of my life, to be honest. I was a very, very young 14, looking and mentally wise, so I didn't understand anything that had happened to me. It was earth-shattering for me, and it completely changed my childhood. I don't really remember a lot of my childhood because I've had to block so much out. It's horrendous.
So to this day, I mean, I would imagine that you must think about this every day, don't you?
Yeah, I live with it every day. I live with the trauma of it. I've been diagnosed with, unfortunately, a lot of anxiety and PTSD. Yeah, it doesn't leave me ever.
Why did you decide to waive your right to anonymity? I know you've been raising a petition to try and change this decision to release this guy, Simon Tyler. You got 50,000 signatures. I hope today you'll get a lot more. We'll give the details of how to sign that. But why did you decide to reveal yourself, as it were?
So, to be honest, I have children of my own, and I've never felt the need to reveal myself before. But then after receiving this letter, I had to do something. I couldn't just sit back and let this happen. So I made the petition, and it built a lot of traction. It's over 60,000 now, thankfully. So because it's built so much traction, and I set up, I was doing updates on it, still under anonymous. I was doing updates on it, and I made an email address for victims if they did want to contact me, just so we could be together and try and deal with this together. And the amount that I've had that it is affected it's hot. It's honestly, it's scary. So from then, I felt like I was backed into a corner. I've got this massive following on the petition, and if I don't use this platform to speak up and do something about it, then I would never forgive myself, and I could never look another victim in the face if I could have done something. Well,
I think it's very brave of you, and I think it's a very powerful thing that you've done. Now, as I say, I mean, when this guy was originally sentenced, I mean, the whole thing is a farce, if you ask me. You know, a 24-year-old friend of your family, presumably your parents or something, who rapes a 14-year-old girl and twice and ruins her life to this day, only gets 9 years. I mean, that in itself, I think, is a scandal. Then you have to learn, oh, well, you know, we always let people out early, so we're going to let him out in 2030. He'll only have done 6 years. And then you get this letter saying, oh, scratch that, he'll be out in September. What do you feel about that chronology, and what do you feel about this early release scheme in terms of this man who raped you? What do you feel about that?
I feel ultimate betrayal, to be honest. We, as victims or survivors, we work so hard and dedicate so much of our life just to get them into prison, and it's always on us. We have to prove this, we have to prove that, and again, we're still left to fight. It's not us that have committed these crimes. We haven't hurt anyone, we haven't done anything wrong, but it's us that hurt every single day, and hurt from the betrayal that from people that are supposed to protect us.
Absolutely. Now, today in Prime Minister's Question Time in the House of Commons, actually, shall we play it? Yeah, have a look at this, Jade, and we'll talk about this afterwards. You'll get the point. This was Prime Minister's Questions, and it was the Tory, James Cleverly, quizzing the Deputy Prime Minister, David Lammy, and this was his first question.
We all know that releasing dangerous criminals on purpose is the wrong thing. We're not content with doing that. He is hell-bent on releasing dangerous criminals by accident. Yep. Last year, in response to the questions of my right honourable friend, the member for South Suffolk, he claimed that under Labour he had got a grip of accidental releases. Yet we now know there have been more accidental releases in the last 2 years than in the entirety of the last Parliament. So I give him another chance. Will he apologise to the country for his abject failure at keeping prisoners in prison where they belong?
I've got to say, this is rich coming from the honourable gentleman. Exactly. They had 14 long years in power. They wrecked neighbourhood policing. He was Home Secretary. Prisons were at bursting point. That's why they called the general election. And they let out offenders in secret. Yep. And that is why we have the Sentencing Act that passed through this House and the House of Lords. What we're doing is we are getting thousands more bobbies on the beat. We're toughening up probation. They've decimated it. And we have to have the space to knock up dangerous criminals. That's why we passed the sentencing bill.
So, Jade, his first question to David Lammy was, would the Deputy Prime Minister like to apologise for the victims of sex offenders who are being released early from prison in September? He neglected, or he refused to apologise. He refused to say sorry to people like you. What is your response to David Lammy?
I think it's disgusting, to be honest. I went to Parliament myself yesterday because they held a debate yesterday and vote. And I sat there and listened to Jake Richards saying that he's contacted victims and that he didn't answer any questions whatsoever. He couldn't look at us. He just argued everything was to do with the Conservative. But that's not our argument. Whether whose fault it is, they need to stay in prison. It's as simple as that. And if they're putting more money into police and if they're putting more money into probation, why can't you put more money into the prisons and keep the prisoners there that have already been sentenced, that we have been promised in a court of law would stay there? And like you said previously, the sentences aren't long enough anyway. I have lived with this forever now, and he gets 6 years, was supposed to serve 6 years, and now we're facing this. It's just insult after insult after insult, and yes. I can't preach that enough.
So this guy is going to be doing sort of around about 2 years for what he did to you. That's absolutely disgraceful. How does it, when he is released, how will that make you feel? I mean, will you feel sort of haunted by the fact this guy is walking the streets free as a bird?
It petrifies me, and he lived 10 minutes down the road, and he will more than likely go back to where he was originally from, and that petrifies me. Like I said, I have children myself, and the thought of him never being able to be anywhere near them.
Yeah, Jade, we're losing the line a bit, but if I caught you right there, you said, no, it's not the picture, it's the sound, don't worry. If I caught you right there, you said that the prospect of this guy, who's going to have done only about 2 years for raping you twice when you were 14, the prospect of his walking the streets again petrifies you. OK. Well, look, Jade, if you're still there, the line has gone down. But thank you so much for coming on, everybody. What a brave woman, what a brave young woman that is. And what a disgrace. Her rapist, this guy was 24 years old, friend of the family, apparently used to ply her with cigarettes and drink, used to act like he was her cool older brother, and then raped her twice when she was 14. It's ruined her life. He's going to end up serving about 2 years for that, because he's going to get released in September, and Jade is petrified. He only lives 10 minutes away from her. She shouldn't have to live like this, and she's just one victim. What about all the other victims? There are so many victims of these rapists and these sexual abusers who are going to be released in September grotesquely early. I mean, what on earth is that all about? Someone who rapes a 14-year-old girl, ruins her life and spends, you know, a couple of years behind bars. This is a disgrace, folks. This is an utter disgrace. Let me know what you think. 0344 499 1000. Sorry the line went down there, but once again, our profound thanks to Jade Belgrove, a child rape survivor who very courageously has waived her right to anonymity to speak out for all the other victims that this government is letting down. They should not be releasing rapists and sex offenders. Am I right? 0344 499 1000. Barrister Stephen Barrett joins us next. Stay tuned.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's go over to my next guest. He is barrister and political commentator, social commentator, Stephen Barrett. Welcome, Stephen.
Hi, it's good to be here, Kev. Always is.
Always a pleasure to have you on the show. Well, I don't know if you were just listening to an item we just did, but I just interviewed a very brave young woman called Jade Belgrove. She's now 30 years old. When she was 14, a friend of the family, so-called friend of the family, who was 24, raped her twice. And ruined her life. She says to this day, it haunts every moment of her life. And she mourns for the childhood that she lost, that was stolen from her by this monster. This guy, in 2024, was sentenced to 9 years, not nearly enough for this heinous crime. He was going to be released in 2030 under the usual remission scheme, so he'd have done 6 years, even more grotesquely lenient. And guess what now? By the way, his name is Simon Tyler. He's going to be released in September under the government's early release scheme. He will have done around about 2 years for raping a teenage girl and ruining her life. 2 years. What the hell is going on in this country? And Jade is quite rightly, in my view, furious at this government. She says when this guy lives 10 minutes down the road, the moment he's released, she will live in fear and terror. What on earth is going on, Stephen?
Well, for a start, Kev, I think we've accepted, you and I have accepted for a while, that the Uniparty, that's the Labour and the Conservative Party, really talk a lot of talk about women and girls, and they don't actually care about our women and girls, because there is, and our children generally. There are far too many instances of basically no punishment. I think most of us who are decent human beings would expect rape, particularly rape of a child, to carry a life sentence. I mean, some of us might even wish to go a little bit further. You know, the simple fact is sentences in this country no longer reflect what ordinary people think. And that's quite a deliberate step. They have created, the Labour Party created and the Conservative Party maintained this system in which independent experts got to choose what sentences are. Now, you can't be an independent expert in sentences. These things are emotional. These things are deeply cultural. If you want to be a society that tolerates rape, I mean, okay, but I don't want to live in your society. And if you want to be a society that I want to live in, you probably give somebody like this a life sentence. But the idea that these people, these men, are going on the early release system is just, it flies in the face of anything. We are at the point, Kev, where the government is taking the mick. They are mocking us deliberately to our face. They are rubbing our noses in it. They're about to spend 6 weeks laughing at a guy wearing a bin on his head as though that's somehow desperately, hilariously funny, whilst our children and our women are being raped and the punishments are not fitting the crime.
Yeah, well, let's agree, shall we, Stephen, that if the government needs to have this early release scheme to free up cell space in our overcrowded prisons, then they must exclude from the prisoners they release earlier sex offenders and rapists. They must not be released early. The idea of a grown man, 24 years old, twice raping a 14-year-old child. Jade said she was a very young 14. You know, stealing her childhood, ruining her life, and serving just about 2 years behind bars. That is not a serious country that punishes a rapist like that.
No, it's not. And frankly, any serious country that was running out of prison space would get more.
Build some more prisons. How about that?
If we can have Nightingale hospitals for COVID, then we can have Nightingale prisons. Just get it done. You know, I'm sure there's a lot of unused space that we could be using. You only need a lock on the door. It's not that complicated. And frankly, no, I don't have any sympathy for these men. And what's going on is we've reached suicidal empathy, where we are overly sympathetic to monsters. Any 24-year-old man who rapes a child is a monster. Okay, that I don't feel I have to justify my moral feelings on this through some sort of intellectual lens. I think that's bloody obvious. And I want to live in a country where monsters are properly punished, not released after 2 years.
Absolutely right. Well, let me ask you a couple of other points. I'm not going to bother you with the Farage psychodrama. We've done a lot of that, as you say. We are now facing the extraordinary prospect of a by-election fought between Nigel Farage and a guy with a tin can on his head. So good luck with that. But let's talk about some serious issues that will affect us. The Office of Budget Responsibility has just revealed that Andy Burnham, our King Andy, our Prime Minister designate, will need very fast £120 billion in order to avoid our national debt spiralling into serious crisis, possibly making us go to the IMF to bail the country out. So he needs £120 billion. Last time I heard him talk about this, it was, I'm not going to make any cruel cuts to the welfare bill. What he means by that is he's not going to make any cuts to the grotesque welfare bill, which is £350 billion a year. So he's not going to do that. And he waffled on about, I think there's some wriggle room with warehouses on the outsides of cities and towns. Good luck with that. What this means is this guy's going to tax us. Our taxes are going up. He's going to have to do it, isn't he?
Well, what that means, Kev, is that everything will crash and burn because the Laffer curve is real. It's a real thing. You cannot just constantly increase taxes and expect to increase tax take. That's not what happens. What happens when we're already in a destroyed economy. We're already in a very bad way. What happens if he increases taxes moving forward is that the economy tanks even more and he raises even less money. It is a doomed spiral. It's real. And they're just pretending it doesn't exist when it exists. There is no way out of this for them. They're going to have to cut the state. The state requires very serious cuts. And then we should unleash the economy. Because if you actually want to raise more money from taxes, you let the economy go free. And then, you admit that the state is a bit of a parasite. And you let the host be happy and healthy so that you can bleed a bit more money off it. At the moment, the state is strangling the economy.
Yeah, exactly right. What do you make also of this, Stephen? This has emerged. Now, this has been rumbling along. The government, a couple of years ago, had this big crackdown on care workers, foreign care workers, and various other people granted legal visas to work or study in this country, getting these visas and then bringing loads of their family members with them. And that was all above board. And of course, it shouldn't have been. So the government said, oh, we're going to stop that. That's ridiculous. Well, they haven't really stopped it. It turns out that migrant care workers are still bringing with them, once they get their visa to work here as a care worker, they are still bringing with them as many as 15 family members. So every visa we give to these care workers, they bring about 15 people with them. This is madness.
Yes, there are things so stupid that only an intellectual can believe them. And for 30 years, we've had that policy of them intellectualizing why bringing loads of poor people who can't support themselves to our country is a good idea. Well, my granny didn't need a degree to know that that was incredibly stupid, Kath. And it is. It just remains incredibly stupid. And, from a certain point of view, I'm part of this elite. And it's like, well, why would I want to stand with them when they're doing things which are obviously stupid, obviously going to get their heads cut off, when ordinary people wake up and realize that our country just cannot go on like this?
I couldn't agree more. And of course, someone who wants to take over the country and says he will stop the rot is Nigel Farage. We know the story. Yesterday, he looked very strong. He said, I'm resigning as Clacton MP and I'm going to trigger a by-election. And the people of Clacton can decide what they think about my financial affairs. I'll leave it up to them. He sort of said that as if he thought that if he did that, they would drop the parliamentary inquiry into his finances, which, of course, they won't. I suspect now he's going to fight an empty by-election, uncontested except by Count Bimface. Then they'll find him guilty of breaking the rules. It's just my speculation, but this is what I reckon will happen, because the establishment are on the march. There's no doubt about it.
Well, it's not, Kev, it's not.
But then he'll have to fight another by-election. So that's what lies ahead for him. I mean, you know, it doesn't look good, does it?
Well, then he'll have to fight a general election. At the moment, Nigel Farage is the only person who's actually offering hope to Britain. We are cascading into state collapse.
Yep.
Okay, this is where we are. Once you raise taxes to this level, once you crush the economy and strangle it dead, there are only so many options left, and we are rapidly running out of them. In terms of the people, I think the British people would still prefer a democratic outcome. God willing, I would, Kev, because the minute we get a dictator, it's going to be Barrett's head on the block, or you and I will have to hang out in the gulag.
We'll be up against the wall. We'll be killed by the firing squad almost immediately. In fact, the way this Labour government is going, I expect that to happen to us in, what, a couple of weeks, something like that, as soon as Andy Burnham takes over as our supreme ruler. We're currently showing footage of Donald Trump speaking live at the NATO conference. He has had an absolute hissy fit about Spain, saying that Spain is a wasted cause and a terrible partner in NATO. That refers to the fact that Spain is making no efforts to meet the requirement of 5% GDP spending on defence by 2035. He says they're not making any effort, so they're a wasted cause, a terrible partner in NATO. He said, I don't want to do any trade business with Spain anymore. I'd like to cut it out. Spain is a terrible partner. Cut off trade, please, including visits. OK, we don't want anything to do with them. Watch them come running back. Watch them come running back. What do you think?
It seems fair, to be perfectly honest. I mean, Donald Trump doesn't. I mean, from our point of view as the UK, Spain is betraying us on another level.
Yeah, letting all those migrants in. Yeah, this is their ludicrous left-wing Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez.
Well, he's a Marxist, and we just have to admit that because it's quite funny, Kev, because from my point of view, communists sort of only really existed in films when I was a child. We had the USSR, but you know, I remember the Berlin Wall falling, but I was very young at the time, so it was like just sort of, oh right, the communists are all dead now, they've gone away. And it's like, no, they've not gone anywhere. Yeah. They're still here, and they're causing massive problems, and we're going to have to step up to it. Mr. Trump has his own, you know, inimitable style, as do I, and people either love you or hate you depending on your style. What matters is your substance. The substance of what Mr. Trump is talking about is absolutely right. Spain is an appalling ally. It's not really an ally at all. It's also just stolen Gibraltar from us and insisted that we have no border with it. I mean, why Keir Starmer capitulated, other than the fact he's the worst prime minister in our history, we'll probably never know. But the idea that somebody should step up and go, oh, well, Mr. Trump's being rude about Spain, so let's defend Spain. It's like, no, I have no desire to do so. Your callers and listeners may well wish to do so, but I have no desire to defend Spain.
Yeah, and Spain, as this guy Pedro Sanchez, it was a couple of weeks ago, he basically just opened their borders and said all migrants are welcome. So he made official what our government kind of does unofficially. We continue to let them in, but we make noises about, oh, we're going to solve this crisis. So we've got Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, talking about the future is accommodating migrants, asylum seekers in military bases. Oh, that's encouraging, isn't it? There was me hoping that the future might be we stop illegal migrants entering the country. Wouldn't that be the target? Shouldn't that be her target?
Or we send them home like sensible countries do, which is the UAE, Saudi Arabia. These are sensible countries. Often, I don't know if you watch it, but the UAE is hilariously funny because it's a great fan of us. It's a great fan of Britain and the UK. And it often tries to give us advice and warn us about things. And it doesn't understand why we're doing these things to harm ourselves. And I don't understand either. I stand with the United Arab Emirates. I don't understand why Britain is self-harming, but we are definitely self-harming. And the idea that Trump is a threat to us is a joke. Spain is a clear and present danger to the safety of women and children in the United Kingdom right now.
Absolutely right. I mean, what Sanchez has done in Spain, that will spill over to Britain, because a lot of these migrants, hundreds of thousands, he's let 500,000, I believe it in, he's just letting in. They're not going to hang around in Spain. They're going to head for the promised land, as in Britain. They'll get to France, they'll get up to the north coast and get themselves a small boat all the way across to Britain, where we will give them 50 quid a week benefits, free doctors, free dentists, free food, free accommodation, and so on and so forth, which feeds into what you were saying about this being a balmy country, balmy Britain. You're exactly right. Now, let's quickly, before you go, Stephen, great to have you on the show, obviously, as always. Andy Burnham, I think we got a tenor of the man yesterday, day before, where this is a guy who's got the chance to come on in as Prime Minister and just basically park all that utter nonsense about giving the Chagos Islands to Mauritius, you know, to make some sort of statement about British colonialism or something. And also, by the way, give them 35 billion quid for reasons no one can quite work out. He had a chance to come into number 10 and basically just don't even mention it. Don't do it, don't mention it. Guess what? He said one of his first actions will be to revive Britain's bid to give away the Chagos Islands, very strategic islands in the middle of the Indian Ocean, where there's an airstrip, Diego Garcia, used by the Americans, by us, to patrol the Far East and the Middle East. Andy Burnham is going to inherit, arguably, Starmer's most unpopular, worst policy, and he's going to carry it on. He's going to carry it through. Burnham showing about as much political nous as his predecessor, as in none whatsoever.
Well, so let's just be very clear. There is no legal case to give away the Chagos Islands at all. If you're against colonialism, it is a colonial act to steal the Chagos Islands from the Chagos Islanders and give them to a foreign power. That is absolutely betraying them. Obviously, there is no legal case or moral reason to give away billions of pounds we don't have to a foreign power, which, by the way, is a great fan of people who are hostile to us. So you just...
China's best friend. China's best friend, Mauritius.
You just have to run through, and I'm not welcome there because Foreign Office advises that same-sex attracted people need to hide the fact that they're same-sex attracted if they go to Mauritius. So these are not nice people. I've met the Chagos Islanders and had a lovely dance with them, Kev. They're nice people. So I really am just going to draw a moral distinction between Mauritius and the Chagos Islanders.
Yeah, well, they're different. It's important. They're very... It's like 1,500 miles from Mauritius.
Yeah.
And Mauritius has never governed or owned the Chagos Islands. So we're not giving them back to Mauritius. No. We're just pointlessly giving them to Mauritius.
We may as well give ourselves to Greenland. Yeah. But where I disagree with you is that I think this is the political nous of now, which is where a number of narcissistic, shallow, empty-headed, completely idiotic vessels each compete to be the next sort of avatar, next pretend prime minister who will just do what the civil service instruct them to do. And all Andy Burnham will do is what the civil service instruct him to do. And I see no difference between Andy Burnham and Keir Starmer, and I see no difference between Andy Burnham and Rishi Sunak. You know, and Theresa May, the two prime ministers I would single out who at least had their own agenda, or at least attempted a little bit of it, are Boris and Liz. But if you go back to David Cameron, he's exactly the same thing. I'm willing to be an empty vessel who just goes on telly, says the words, and then does whatever the civil service tells me. Go back to Gordon Brown. I'm willing to be an empty vessel that goes on the telly, says a few words, and then just does what the civil service tells me. Tony Blair and John Major. Not since Margaret have we had a successful prime minister who actually stood up to the blob.
Yeah, actually did anything. I just think that this guy, Andy Burnham, I mean, I wish him all the best. He's going to be our Prime Minister. I hope he does a great job. But shall we say, to put it mildly, the portents are not good. Stephen, fantastic to have you on the show, as always. Thank you so much. The brilliant Stephen Barrett there, barrister and commentator. Next up, we're going to talk to our brilliant reporter and presenter Samara Gill, get her view on the Farage psychodrama. Psychodrama is becoming a big cliche, isn't it? But certainly it's a psychodrama in Clacton. Who's winning? Is it the establishment or is it Nigel Farage? Let me know what you think. Has Farage still got the upper hand here? Or have the establishment struck back successfully by saying, well, you can fight that contest on your own? Is he still on the rack for his financial dealings? Well, the answer to that is yes. He's not out of the woods here, folks. Let me know what you think. 0344499 1000. Samara next. Stay tuned.
Good morning to you. This is Tour the Home of Common Sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Just breaking news in the last couple of moments. Extraordinary news. Not just that the police have arrived at the Sandringham estate where Prince Andrew, as was now Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, is currently living since being thrown out of the Windsor estate. The police have arrested Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. It's an extraordinary revelation. And certainly what's been contained in the Epstein files was released in the last few weeks. It's his 66th birthday today. What a birthday present that is.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Well, we were hoping to get that political colossus, Count Binface, on the show at this point, but unfortunately he's gone rusty, so he can't quite make it. So we've got very much the second best. We couldn't get Count Binface, but we could get Talk presenter Samara Gill. Hi, Samara.
Hi, Kev. I'm sorry I didn't bring my bin hat.
Yeah, I did ask you to wear a bucket over your head so we could at least pretend we had Count Binface. Let's have a quick listen before we talk well, we're going to listen to Count Binface in a minute, but first, this is Nigel Farage in Clacton, his constituency today.
Number one, I have nothing to apologise for at all. I haven't broken the law in any way at all, and I'm firmly of the belief, backed up by strong legal opinion, that I have not broken Parliament's rules either. However, as a result of constantly being referred and complained about, it now would appear from the media pylon and from the political party pylon that I'm guilty of virtually everything. I'm being painted out to the people in this constituency, frankly, as being a crook. Well, I'll tell you what, I don't think Sky News or anybody else should be my judge. I think the voters here in Clacton should have that opportunity. And as for the other parties, you know, the Conservatives got over 30,000 votes here in 2019. They don't want to stand. They know, well, you know why? Because they'd lose and lose badly.
Look, I've got a lot of time for Nigel Farage, and no one is saying he's a crook. No one's saying he's broken the law, but there are a number of financial transactions, shall we say. He stands accused of making them in the 12 months before he became an MP in 2024, including the £5 million gift, free gift from crypto billionaire Count Binface, and also allegedly from this guy George Cottrell, who's known as Posh George, and other transactions as well. Now, if he did receive these gifts and it is decided they're politically relevant, then he will have broken the parliamentary rules, and then they can suspend him. My bet will be they'll suspend him long enough if they get the chance to trigger another by-election. So I guess my question to you, we'll listen to Count Bimface in just a second, but we'll ponder this question. It's what will, and then you can come back with your brilliant answer after we've listened to Count Bimface. What will Nigel Farage actually achieve, yodeling into a vacuum, really, fighting a by-election against nobody except for a guy with a tin can on his head? What will he prove? Let's just listen to that guy with a tin can on his head, Count Bimface. Here he is.
They can choose to run away from my beneficence and magnificence, or maybe they just noticed that Nigel is up to a rather peculiar hissy fit, and they're keeping their powder dry for a second by-election when, of course, the parliamentary committee reports. But interestingly, you see, the thing is, that second election, which would cost 380 grand, will only happen if Nigel wins this one. So if you vote Binface, you save the British taxpayer £380,000 without me doing anything.
Well, that's Count Bimface. I think I just misspoke. I think I just said Count Bimface was a crypto billionaire. I meant Christopher Harborne. Sometimes you say some ridiculous things on live broadcasting. But what, to go back to that question, Samara, what will Nigel Farage achieve fighting an election against a bloke with a tin can on his head and no one else? What will he achieve?
This is the question, isn't it, that we're all asking ourselves 24 hours after Farage's amazing speech. I mean, it was a brilliant uplift from the doldrums that he was in and the party was in beforehand. But now it seems like the tide has gone out and Reform's been left naked, and it's not a pretty sight. Honestly, I've just had to go on our sister station, Sky News Australia, and explain that Nigel Farage is running against a bin in a constituency that he's ridiculously popular in, and they're all tearing their hair out over there and saying, why? What the hell is going on? And it's a very valid question. I mean, they keep saying that there's the media conspiracy, there's a Westminster conspiracy against them. I mean, Kev, you answer me. Is there a media conspiracy? Are we trying to end Reform? Do we get together in little parties, you know, in the middle of the night and think about how we're going to end that party? No. That doesn't happen. And I think, you know, this has obviously paused the investigation, as you say, but it's going to get picked back up again right as soon as Farage becomes an MP. So we have many questions to ask here. Let's strip away all the drama and actually just figure out. So Farage is running in a seat and trying to prove that he can win in a seat that he's already proven that he's been able to win before, whilst running against Count Binface.
It is an extraordinary situation, and here's the deal. By the way, I've got to announce some breaking news. You'll love this as a massive sports fan, Samara. Britain's Arthur Furry has reached Wimbledon's semi-finals after beating Italy's Flavio Cobolli in this quarter-final just now, 6-4, 7-6, tie-break in the second sentence, and the final set, 6-0. Arthur Furry ranked 114th in the world, came into this tournament with a wild card. He now will have made more than £500,000, making it to the semi-finals, but oh my God, you know, this unknown is suddenly in the semi-finals of Wimbledon, the first British wildcard contestant ever to make the quarterfinals and now semi-finals of a Grand Slam tournament. So I thought I ought to announce that. Amazing stuff. But let's go back to Reform and to Nigel Farage. Let's face it, you know, when he made that speech yesterday, among many, I was really impressed. I thought, man, that's how to get back the initiative. That's how to grasp the nettle, seize the initiative, and make the narrative your own. People at Clacton can decide whether or not I've done anything wrong. OK, fine. Now that the other parties have all said, well, you can fight this by-election on your own. We're not going to stand. It all looks a bit empty and pointless. And I think the proposition the people of Clacton can decide about my finances, what about the rest of the country? And also, the people of Clacton will not decide on his finances. The Parliamentary Standards Office will decide. And they are still investigating him. And this by-election will make no difference to that investigation. So the chances are he'll beat Count Bimface, and then the Parliamentary Standards Office will say, well, you're guilty of these offences, potentially, you might not be, and therefore you've broken our rules, therefore you're suspended for 2 weeks. That means we need another by-election. That triggers another by-election. He's got himself caught in a bit of a mess, hasn't he?
I do really wonder if Reform and Farage, when they were in their sort of war chest, did think that this would happen, and if they actually planned for this outcome. I mean, I agree with you. A lot of people are comparing it to Richard Nixon in 1952, you know, when he was a Republican vice presidential nominee, and it emerged that, you know, there was a private political expense fund that was worth 18 grand, which would now be about 200K. And people are saying this was Farage's checkers moment, you know. This is about the fact that he is using democratic legitimacy that ultimately comes from voters and not elites in order to bolster his public view. And I think it's still very much true today, and Farage is making a big gamble in this sense. But is he taking the public for a ride is the question. You know, Andy Burnham was easily able to use Makerfield in order to get a one-way ticket to number 10, and Makerfield maketh the man. But is Clacton going to end Farage's career? We do need to ask this question, because the British people don't appreciate constantly being taken for a ride. And I really do understand where Farage is coming from, but I honestly think that he'd be better used in the House of Commons, taking the new Prime Minister to task, you know, when it's going to be Andy Burnham, instead of campaigning against Count Binface, eating fish and chips in Clacton and trying to win this sort of strange by-election. It's just a weird use of someone who could be the future Prime Minister of Britain's time, in my opinion. It's honestly not even an indictment on Farage. I just believe that he's better than this.
Yeah, I've got a feeling that they didn't calculate at Reform Towers. They didn't factor in that all the other parties might boycott this by-election. And I do think it's left him kind of high and dry. And the people of Clacton will not decide whether or not his financial affairs are A-OK. The Parliamentary Standards Office will. It's as simple as that. And by the way, you know, what's he going to say? Oh, look, it's me and this guy with a tin can on his head. Who are you going to vote for? Do you mind my 5 million quid or don't you? At the end of that little farce, what will he have proved?
Look, Count Binface tweeted, come on, Nige, and it's received 22,000 likes on X. So there is that, but of course I don't see a future in which this is happening. I just don't think that it's making the same really deep and bolshy political point that Farage initially was trying to make, which is that it's the establishment versus me, and let the people decide, and here's my two-fingered salute to everyone. Yeah. Unfortunately, it doesn't make the big investigation go away, and hopefully this doesn't sort of shroud his legacy in any sort of way in darkness, because it could. I don't know. He's got to play this now quite carefully. Yeah, here's my view on it. I mean, I'm a big admirer of Nigel Farage. He's achieved amazing things. Never bet against Nigel Farage. But he's in a difficult situation now. And the question is down the line, will he emerge triumphant? Will he be accepted by the people of this country as a guy who got a 5 million quid bung from a crypto millionaire called billionaire called Christopher Harbourne? Will they accept his dealings with this guy, Posh George Cottrell, and other financial transactions that are being systematically revealed by the media? Just saying I'm going to let the people of Clacton decide
bit prejudicial towards the rest of the country, really, I would suggest. But it's a bit of a mess there now, Samara, but really good to talk to you about that. Thank you very much for coming on. Now, next up, we're going to talk to Charlotte Griffiths. She's the editor-at-large for the Mail on Sunday newspaper. She's one of the Mail journalists who went into the dock during Prince Harry and his showbiz mates case against the Mail, saying that all these Mail journalists, including Charlotte, used all these nefarious, illegal methods, hacking their phones, putting microphones on. They were absolute garbage. They had no evidence whatsoever, but for many a long year and month, people like Charlotte, those Mail journalists, have had this hanging over them. Their life has been made hell for these allegations that were all thrown out, dismissed entirely, all 97 of them, by the judge at the High Court yesterday. I think it's a disgrace what these decent and honest journalists have been put through by Prince Harry and a bunch of showbiz lovies who just think, oh, newspapers are horrible, we can say what we like about them, we can sue them, and we don't need any evidence because everybody hates newspapers. Well, guess what? You do need evidence. Charlotte and her colleagues should not have been put through this. We'll talk to her next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Well, let's go straight over to my next guest. She's one of the triumphant Daily Mail Group newspaper journalists who were completely exonerated yesterday after what I may say is something like 4 years of hell for them. So welcome to Editor-at-Large of the Mail on Sunday, Charlotte Griffiths. Hi, Charlotte.
Hello, do I look frazzled? I'm pretty frazzled.
Well, you must also be relieved. You had a really key role in this ongoing legal saga in court where Harry, you being very good at your job, very well connected, you knew Harry. In fact, at one point, you were sending pretty flirty little texts to each other, and he was saying, oh, missing our cuddles and all that sort of stuff. Harry went into court and said, no, I don't think I've ever met. I don't know who she is. Then your WhatsApp messages were revealed, which made the Prince look pretty stupid. Before we go into that and your key role in all of this, Charlotte, just try to explain. You and all these decent, honest Mail journalists have been put through 4 years of hell, I would suggest, by this Prince Harry and his showbiz pals, basically feeling, in my view, that they can say what they like about people like you and newspapers. I used to be in newspapers myself. A lot of my friends were involved in this case. Alison Boshoff, Nicole Lampert, Richard Simpson, all these people who've been through hell. If that judge yesterday had said, yep, they're all phone hackers, they're all lawbreakers, your careers, your lives would have been ruined. What's it been like having that hanging over you for 4 years?
You know, it's one of those things where we knew it was bad, we knew it was hanging over us, and we knew we were stressed, obviously. But then it wasn't until 2 p.m. yesterday when we got the news that you just don't realise how heavy the weight on your shoulder is until it comes off, which is why I think we've all been in sort of spin ever since. We're sort of frazzled, relieved, exhausted. We're busy writing lots of pieces about it. My piece has just gone online now about Prince Harry. And it's been exhausting, but yeah, it's been incredibly stressful. And if the judge had said you're all phone hackers, it would have been absolutely devastating. All my 18 years at the Mail, hardworking, building my black book, all those parties I used to go to in the early 2010s would have been for nothing.
Yeah. A real stress on you, a real strain, and your thoughts on the fact that these people, led by Harry, were allowed to bring this action. I mean, it is quite extraordinary that the judge yesterday dismissed all 97 serious allegations against you and your colleagues. So this action was empty and lacked any evidence. How was it allowed to come to court?
Well, I honestly think they thought we'd settle because, in my opinion, Harry, certainly Harry, I don't know about the others, but Harry believes all journalists are exactly the same. We're all pure evil phone hackers because some were phone hackers at the News of the World and we're all the same. And it didn't ever occur to him that at the Daily Mail, we have been highly trained. We have a very rigorous system in place for proper journalism. We've worked really hard to get to where we are and we don't phone hack. So I just think he couldn't believe we didn't settle. I think he thought we'd hang our heads in shame and settle and say, oh, yes, we probably did. Just here's some money. But of course we didn't. We wanted to fight to the bitter end because not one single one of us has ever phone hacked.
Exactly right. That, as a journalist, a former newspaper man, it really annoys me because basically Harry's case, and for that matter his showbiz pals, their case sort of is, oh, there's this story, you know, and I don't know how they got it. The only way they could have got this story is by hacking my phone or sticking a microphone on my... There's no other way they could have got it, as if journalists don't have any legitimate ways of getting information. We do. We've had them for years, for centuries, but that doesn't seem to have got through Harry's thick head, does it?
Well, yeah, Harry's whole case was based on this idea that his circle wasn't leaky. And in one piece of evidence, there's actually an email from Harry to his friend Tom Inskip saying, how did this story about Meghan Markle coming to your wedding get out in the press? Charlotte Griffiths wrote about it. And Tom Inskip says, I'll find out who the leak is. He used the word leak.
Yeah.
And then he said, oh, well, I asked my wife and she told 5 friends at dinner. Well, that is how journalism works. One person tells 5 people tell 5 people. In this instance, it didn't even get that far. One of those people just told me straight away because people were excited. You know, this girl said, the fiance said, oh, Meghan Markle's coming to my wedding, told 5 people. And they said, oh, you never guess who's going to Laura's wedding. That is gossip. Humans gossip. Yeah. And the fact that Harry used the word leak in an email with his friend and then stood up in court and said my friendship circle wasn't leaky, misunderstands A, his own friendship circle, B, the word leak, and C, how journalism works. And you would have thought he would understand how journalism works, but because he knows, he's been at the inner workings of journalism just as much as we have. You know, his mother worked with the press a lot. The King still does. That's how stories are got.
I think the problem with him, Charlotte, is he just thinks we're all evil. We're all lawbreakers. He hates us so much. You know, he's got cause to not love the media, the way his mum was treated and all that, but he lets that spill over into a very prejudicial view of what journalists do. You in particular, let me ask you personally, I mean, you knew Harry. We saw your sort of flirty, funny messages between each other. You knew him. You must have liked him. What do you think has happened to him? For him to... Basically, you were friends, then he ends up telling lies about you. Oh, I don't know if I've ever even met her. He ended up looking very foolish. But what do you think has happened to him from between now and the time when you knew him? Something's gone wrong with this guy, hasn't it?
Yeah, well, my theory about this, and I've just put it live on the Mail Online now, is that he has rewritten history in his head. So what is he now? He's a straight-laced Californian guy. He's very virtuous and virtue signaling. And that's fine. One can grow into that kind of person, but you don't eradicate who you were before. And who he was before was a wild child, which is, by the way, how I got to know him, because I, too, am a 41-year-old woman. I was in my 20s in the early 2010s. And our friendship circle, we were partying hard. We were going to nightclubs. We were chatting. We were going on country house weekends. And that's all fine. I'm now a mother of 3 and I'm married. And, we grow up. But you don't just pretend that you were a saint you in your 20s. We all know that most of us are a little bit wild in our 20s. And he's just rewritten history and he can't remember the old him. And these Facebook messages, are so cringe to read because it is actually a bit of a reminder of how funny and silly and mad we all were back then. And, that's the joy of youth, isn't it? But he's not a joyful man anymore.
And you've written that you wish that friendship could be erased, given that he's tarnished it, hasn't he, by going into the dock and saying, I don't even remember. You're obviously quite close friends at one point. It's disappointing, upsetting for a friend to deny you like that, isn't it?
Definitely, because those Facebook messages and the fact that I was even really good friends with him is something I've never revealed before. And the only reason that we all know about it now is because I had to produce evidence to save my career in court.
Of course, yeah, good point.
I've kept it secret for 15 years. And so not only did he not say, thank you very much for keeping the secret. And by the way, there's a lot of things that aren't in my piece today, which I haven't even printed even
Go
now.
on.
And, I would have thought a thank you and a pat on the back would have been in order, but instead I got slapped with a lawsuit.
And you've written in your piece that you wish now that friendship could be erased. Do you think it's Meghan that has changed him?
I have to say my personal theory is yes, because right up until he met her, he was still fun. He got on with his brother and sister-in-law. He was still pretty happy-go-lucky. He was always very lonely when I was friends with him, and I found that really sad. And I do think he was desperate to find someone who could really take charge of his life. He was lost. Yeah. And, Meghan, of course, fitted the bill, but I think he dug up a lot of misery and a lot of she sort of changed his perspective. That's the only way I know how to put it.
Yeah, he just seems like an angry man at war with the world now. Perhaps he won't continue his dragon-slaying efforts against the evil media after that crushing verdict against him yesterday. Charlotte, thank you so much for coming on. Great to talk to you. Go and have a drink. You deserve it. Charlotte Griffiths there, editor-at-large of The Mail on Sunday, former personal friend of Prince Harry. Key moment in this case, which has gone on for 4 years. Charlotte went into the dock. Harry said, I can't even remember meeting her. And all these WhatsApp messages, they were close friends, which is very upsetting to have a friend deny you. Poor Charlotte. And poor all of the Mail journalists, decent, honest people accused of phone hacking, breaking the law, sticking microphones onto people's windows. Absolute claptrap. Shouldn't be allowed, It shouldn't be allowed. If they had no evidence for their claims, then why were these claims allowed to go into court? It cost them 50 million quid. They're going to pay the price now, aren't they? Let's go to break. When we come back, Sun Sports, so stick around.
Good morning to you. This is Tour the Home of Common Sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Just breaking news in the last couple of moments. Extraordinary news. Not just that the police have arrived at the Sandringham estate where Prince Andrew, as was now Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, is currently living since being thrown out of the Windsor estate. The police have arrested Andrew Mountbatten wins it. It's an extraordinary revelation. And certainly what's been contained in the Epstein files as released in the last few weeks. It's his 66th birthday today. What a birthday present that is.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's go over to Dan King, the Deputy Sports Correspondent at The Sun, who's over there in the United States of America covering the World Cup. Welcome, Dan. Let's first not talk about football. Let's talk about tennis, because this is extraordinary. Britain's Arthur Ferry, who is ranked 114th in the world and entered Wimbledon on a wild card, has just reached the semi-finals after beating Italy's Flavio Cobolli 6-4, 7-6, 6-0, 6-love in their quarter-final. This is turning into one hell of a story, isn't it?
No, and particularly because being out here in the States, I was following Wimbledon on the first day, and when I heard that it's like 10 Brits went out.
10 Brits went out on day one, yeah.
And of course, Raducanu and Draper not playing at all. You thought, well, this is going to be interesting. I wonder how many pages we're going to have in the paper about this for the rest of the tournament. But Ferry has sort of almost single-handedly saved this Wimbledon for British tennis. But it is an incredible story. I mean, these days it's so rare for someone on a wild card to come in and do this sort of thing, and to beat the caliber of players that he has is truly extraordinary. And he's done as well now as any British male player, apart from Sir Andy Murray, in terms of singles.
Well, I'm going to put my cards on the table. I'm quite a tennis fan. I'd never heard of him. Had you?
Yeah, well, I had to, because I was the Sun's tennis correspondent.
Oh, well, you would know him, yeah.
during Murray's heyday, so I was aware of him, and he's one of those guys who's got an interesting backstory, and I think he's had the odd injury problem, but it's just one of those kind of outlying stories, which makes sport great. We've had a lot of great underdog stories here at the World Cup, and here's another one, and great for the host nation.
Well, as we're calling it here, it's a fairy tale. Good luck, Arthur Ferry. Let's hope he wins the semi. It's an extraordinary story. Let's return to the World Cup, Dan. Any team news we know about? We are hearing that Jordan Henderson has had surgery after breaking his arm, jumping over an advertising hoarding, celebrating a match that he wasn't even in when we beat Mexico. So there's that. Any other team news that we need to know about?
Well, I think the main thing is the England medical team just trying to work on Reece James, try and get him and fit enough to play some part in the game against Norway. What part that'll be, we don't know. But obviously, with our sort of third choice right back having been sent off and not being able to play, João Quanso, and Livramento having dropped out of the squad before, we are scratching around for a right back. Although as Mr. Tuchel proved the other night, he's very adept at finding solutions in difficult circumstances. But I think having James back would be a boost for his, not only for his defending, but for his physical presence and for his delivery from crosses and set pieces.
What's the feeling ahead of a match against Norway? I mean, Norway, sort of dark horses of the tournament, but they're a damn fine outfit, and of course they've got Erling Haaland. What's the feeling about them as our opponents on Saturday?
Well, they're very dangerous. I mean, let's be frank. Brazil, the Brazil team they beat were not a vintage Brazil. Well, they're vintage in the sense that they were very old, but not vintage in terms of quality. But I think there's two ways of looking at this. If you've got a player like Haaland who can score goals like that with the minimum number of touches in the game, he's so efficient, then he's very, very dangerous. But I think it'd be also dangerous for England to feel that is a kind of stop Haaland and you stop the team. I think as a collective unit, they are very impressive. They're decent defensively. Martin Odegaard seems to have rediscovered the form of the earlier part of last season he had with Arsenal, and players like Patrick Berg, who plays in midfield, he is also emerged as a real kind of breaking star at this tournament. We saw him play in the Champions League for Bode Glimt, but he's really sort of taken up a notch. And the fact is, this is the most successful Norwegian football team male anyway, in their entire history. And they will be looking at playing England as a massive opportunity to get to the semi-finals, much as we are perhaps getting ahead of ourselves and already dreaming of playing against Argentina.
Well, the England fans, of course, are legendary, but the Norwegian fans are something else, aren't they?
Yeah, well, they've really sort of captured the imagination. I mean, it's probably the first World Cup where kind of the digital and the social media age has really been in full effect, the full influencer thing, and these little moments, the memes and things like as you said, the Norwegian row, which they seem to have been doing in every city they've been to, but it adds to the sense of theatre. And I think what's remarkable is someone like Haaland who scores goals for fun, obviously for Manchester City against the very defenders he'll be playing against at the weekend, but he's just taken it up a notch. His record in competitive games for Norway is incredible. And also the other thing about Norway is what a fantastic kit it is. Their red kit with the blue.
Good, yeah, you're right. It is good.
That's my favourite kit of the tournament. I think it really. I don't know if I were wearing that kit, I'd be inspired.
Yeah, I think you're right. I hadn't thought about that. It is a very, very good strip. I agree. Now, let's be optimistic. 10 o'clock kickoff here on Saturday night. Let's just say England win. It's going to be a tough game, but let's just say they win. Who would we potentially face in the semi-finals?
Well, we're seeded to face Argentina if they win.
If they beat Switzerland.
If they beat Switzerland. But there's two things there. Switzerland are pretty good at grinding out results, and they too are on an historic run. They haven't reached the quarterfinals since they hosted the tournament in '54. And as they showed against Colombia yesterday, they are perfectly capable of grinding out a result, taking it to penalties and winning it. And they ended their own sort of World Cup penalty curse with that. So I think don't write off the Swiss from causing an upset, especially as Argentina seem to be living on their 9 lives.
They're making it difficult for themselves, aren't they, Argentina?
And you feel like their luck, if you want to call it that, or the genius of Messi's got to run out at some point. But what I would say is, if England were to get past Norway, Argentina are eminently beatable. The fact that they've almost been beaten and come back each time should not give us nerves. Argentina are eminently beatable. So I think if we beat Norway, we've got a very good chance of beating Argentina or the Swiss if we played in the semi-final. But I still feel that nobody's going to beat France, and if they are beaten, they'll probably be beaten by Spain. And
I agree with you. Both France and Spain are the teams of the tournament, but the draw is working out quite kindly for us, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it could have been worse. Could have been playing Brazil in the quarters, and although in the last 16 rather, and although, as I said, they're not a great Brazil team, all these sort of occasions sort of suck it out of you. And I think the really big thing for England here is I think that performance of the night was the best England performance of my lifetime, where we've actually gone on and won the game. Obviously, we lost in the Euro 96 semis, lost in the Italia 90 semis. Heroic failure, but this was heroic success, and it would be such a shame if they didn't follow it up.
Yeah, well, go England. Fingers crossed. Good to talk to you, Dan. Dan King of the Sun there. Isabel Oakeshott next. Stay where you are.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's go straight over to my next guest. We're going to go through some of the big stories of the day with Talk's excellent international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Welcome, Isabel.
Good evening.
Well, let's first of all play a clip of Nigel Farage earlier today in, is it his constituency anymore? I don't think, in Clacton, where he has resigned as the MP to fight a by-election. Here he is.
Number one, I have nothing to apologise for at all. I haven't broken the law in any way at all, and I'm firmly of the belief, backed up by strong legal opinion, that I have not broken Parliament's rules either. However, as a result of constantly being referred and complained about, it now would appear from the media pylon and from the political party pylon that I'm guilty of virtually everything. I'm being painted out to the people in this constituency, frankly, as being a crook. Well, I tell you what, I don't think Sky News or anybody else should be my judge. I think the voters here in Clacton should have that opportunity. And as for the other parties, you know, the Conservatives got over 30,000 votes here in 2019. They don't want to stand. They know, well, you know why? Because they'd lose and lose badly.
Does this work? Is this ruse working? When he says, I'll let the people of Clacton decide whether or not I've done anything wrong, well, yeah, OK, you can go to the people of Clacton, who it looks as if they'll be voting between Nigel Farage or Count Bimface, a guy with a tin can on his head. But that does not detract from the fact that the real people who will sit in judgment about Nigel Farage's financial affairs are the Parliamentary Standards Office. They're still going to investigate. They are investigating him. So it's all very well saying the people of Clacton will decide, but they won't, will they, in the end?
Well, I think this is a critical question, and, you know, I posed it myself on Mark Dolan's show this morning, standing in for JK. I said the key question for Nigel Farage and for reform is, does this strategy work? And I mean, one of the things I've enjoyed today is watching so much of Westminster in a complete tailspin over how to respond to this. You know, initially, whatever you think of Nigel Farage and his finances, it's quite entertaining looking at Westminster, the other parties trying to work out how to actually deal with this. So you had, for example, the spectacle of Ed Davey at one point yesterday hinting that he might try to stop Nigel Farage calling this by-election. You've then had a bunch of people who were squealing about how much it was going to cost. And then when Reform said they would fund it, they're now saying, oh, well, I don't think you can fund it. You know, so it sort of got to the point where Nigel Farage and his party sort of must feel like they can't win whatever they do. They're just going to have a load of people bleating and complaining and whinging. And I must admit that when Nigel Farage made this announcement yesterday, it had genuinely not occurred to me that there might still be another by-election, just because I just didn't think that politics would be that ridiculous. You know, he's called.
Oh, it will be. It will be.
Evidently so. You know, that is just something I would never, none of us will ever have witnessed in modern politics, or probably even in the history books. There's never such a thing as a politician, a serving MP, resigning on a point of principle, or whatever you want to call it, triggering a by-election over this issue that he's being investigated over by the Parliamentary Standards Commissioner, and then having to do it again if that Parliamentary Standards Commissioner, backed up by a committee that is heavily not in favour of reform, says you need to be suspended. So, I mean, the whole thing is completely farcical.
It is farcical.
And it's likely to get more farcical, you know.
Let me ask you this, Isabel. What will Nigel... Let's say that he's liable to beat Count Bimface fairly comprehensively. What?
Oh, I don't know, Kev. I mean, have you read Count Binface's
He's an impressive man. He's an impressive
I'm liking
binhead.
the manifesto. I mean, I'm not obviously, of course, I'm a reform supporter and I would always back Nigel every step of the way. But you got to hand it to Binface. That's a pretty appealing manifesto.
He's a formidable opponent. But
He's.
Ah, that's my phone. Sorry, I don't know what. I didn't even touch it. Damn thing. It's Count Binface working against me. What will he, though? What will Nigel Farage have achieved if he wins this by-election against Count Binface? What will he actually have achieved? It won't prove that he doesn't still have financial questions to answer. The Parliamentary Standards Office will continue to investigate him. So in the absence of any opponents, apart from a man with a tin can on his head, what will Nigel Farage have proved?
Oh, he'll have proved a lot of things. I mean, he will have...
That he can beat a guy with a tin can on his head.
No, he will have proved, or proven, whatever the right grammar is there, he will have proven that the other parties knew they couldn't beat him at short notice. I mean, their only hope of beating him, setting aside Binface, would have been to come up with a sort of unity candidate. Even then, it was going to be a massive stretch. Nigel's not daft. You obviously done the maths on this. And they didn't have time to cobble together a unity candidate, which is obviously why they're playing for more time now. I mean, what is their agenda? It's to string out the pain for Nigel Farage and his party for as long as they possibly can. So he'll have proved, number one, that the other parties are just too cowardly and don't back themselves to beat him in this constituency. And secondly, assuming he wins and he wins well, he will have proved that his own constituents, the ones to whom he owes his position as an MP at Westminster, care a lot more about what he can do for the country than how rich he is and how he got that money. It's really that simple. So, of course, that doesn't prove that the rest of the country supports him in that way, but he can't ask the rest of the country at this point. So this is as much as he can do. Does it stop endless inquiries into this, that, and the other?
No.
No. I think that's just called being Nigel Farage. There's just going to endlessly be more stuff thrown at him. And I just hope that he, he really looks today like somebody who's got the fire.
He's got his mojo back. There's no doubt about that. And I'm an admirer of Nigel Farage, and I wish him well. But yesterday I was incredibly impressed. I think, man, that really has seized back the initiative. I can't lie. When all the other parties pulled out, it did rather take the air out of the balloon. It rather did deflate the situation. You must admit it wasn't quite as triumphant.
What I think we're in for now is a great deal of fun, and of course that wasn't the primary objective. You know, I can totally foresee if I were a left-wing editor of a left-wing paper, I would be sending reporters around dressed as bins and, ridiculous. There'd be bins everywhere in Clacton. You can just see it, can't you?
What about the perfectly legal activity of a newspaper or a journalist to go around and knock on his relatives' doors if they happen to be living in properties that he owns? Why is he so energised about that? That's not against the rules, is it, to politely knock on a door and ask someone for a comment?
I addressed this on one of our shows last night, whether it was with Peter Cardwell or I can't remember.
You're on too many shows, Isabel. You forget which ones you're on. But sorry, carry on.
They're all brilliant.
You're always welcome on this one, you know that. But sorry.
So what I said there is that I've got two different answers for that. One is that as a journalist, I've knocked on thousands of doors.
Me too. And stood on doorsteps for hours on end. We all know that side of the job.
And in the old days, you used to get sent back and back and back again, even if you'd been told to bog off, and that's putting it politely. I remember just about being in tears sitting outside people's houses, knowing that I was never going to get through the door, but the news editor had said, try again, try again.
That's right there. I know it well. Go on.
That's not a thing anymore. No one does that because it's regarded as unethical. So as a journalist, I'm not going to sit here and lecture other journalists about door knocking. It is what we do. But as a parent and as somebody who supports Nigel and has some understanding of how much pressure his family is under and how difficult it is for them to be Nigel Farage's family, I understand how triggering that
of
was
course,
for
yeah,
him.
of course.
And one more point, I think what really, really got to him is that that Sky News lied about it, as he put it. They would say they didn't lie, but he's adamant they did lie. And that just crossed a line for him at a point where he'd already had it up to here with journalists harassing him and his friends and God knows who else. I get it. You know, Kev, I'm pretty sure I had a journalist loitering outside my home this morning. Someone was behaving extremely oddly, and I know how sort of weird that felt for me. And, you know, this is what he has all the time. It must be exhausting.
Exactly right. You know, a lot of people sort of say, oh, what's your problem with Farage? Why are you attacking? I'm not attacking him. This story is all over the front.
We're having a debate here.
We need to discuss this. It's all over the front pages of the newspaper. It's a very real issue for Nigel Farage and Reform UK. So I don't see why some of our audience seem to think we ought to drop this entire story. The fact of the matter is for better or worse, in the end, Nigel Farage is going to say to the people of this country, not just the people of Clacton, are you OK with me getting this £5 million bung from crypto billionaire Christopher Harborne? Are you OK with my alleged dealings with this guy, Posh George Cottrell, and possibly other financial transactions? He's going to have to say to the country, are we OK with that? What do you think the country is going to decide? In Clacton, he has a lot of fanatical fans. Around the country, what decision do you think they will make about these financial affairs of Farage?
I think millions of people are absolutely desperate for the kind of radical reforming agenda that Nigel Farage and Reform UK offers. And they will put that way ahead of how much money is in his pocket. You know, that is the truth of the matter. I am sure of it. You know, if you were to go out and canvass on a number of in tough areas up north tomorrow and just do a bit of a straw poll as to whether people would still vote for Nigel Farage despite this, then I think they would absolutely wholeheartedly say yes. I think the critical thing is, it doesn't put off Reform voters, you know, those that are already inclined that way. But there might be some in the middle, you know, the floating voter who need more convincing that Nigel Farage has done nothing wrong at all and that he is full square focused on the agenda that he and the party has put forward. So that would be ridiculous of me to sit here and say, well, you know, it's not going to have any impact on anyone. Of course, there'll be some voters that just decide, actually, you know what, I think I'll just go back to the old failed parties.
Yes.
But I think a lot of others will say, you know what, he's been really brave here. It's pretty tough being Nigel Farage. He didn't expect anyone to cry a river for him. But there will be a lot of people that admire his guts for doing this and just want to see something really different in our country other than Labour and the Tories passing the baton between them and persistently, consistently, relentlessly failing our country. Nigel would make a magnificent change for our country and actually really shake things up. And that is terrifying for all those organisations that stand to be dismantled or challenged in a way that they haven't been at all for decades.
Absolutely. And, you know, let me put my cards on the table. I do believe that Nigel Farage is the victim of an establishment plot. You know, they do not like the status quo being challenged. Nigel Farage and Reform are offering an alternative to the centuries-old political system, the age-old two-party system, the Labour or Tories. They're offering an alternative that is exciting to a lot of people. And the status quo fans, the establishment, don't like that, do they? And when the establishment decides it's going to obliterate someone, it's going to eliminate them, it is a formidable foe that will resort to anything to win the war. They will fight ruthlessly, won't they?
They absolutely will, and Reform's leadership fully expected this. I think, as I said to you yesterday, what was not expected is the time frame. Why have they launched their attack and search and destroy, search for anything we can that damages Nigel and then destroy him? Why have they launched that this early in the electoral cycle? Well, there could be 101 strategic reasons for that, but when the 5 million came out, they smelled blood, and now they think, let's just go in for the kill. And that's where we're at. Institutions of the state, including the National Crime Agency, I believe, are complicit in this. There is no way some of this financial information has come out just from an individual bank. It doesn't work like that. A lot of the financial information that has been leaked in the last couple of days has been about transactions that involved multiple banks. Well, that doesn't stack up, does it? There's only one organisation at the top of that has access to the details from multiple banks, and that's the National Crime Agency itself. I mean, it's extraordinary.
It is extraordinary. In terms of the establishment, let's take a listen to the Lib Dem Deputy Leader, Daisy Cooper, asking the government about this upcoming by-election. This was after PMQs earlier. Check it out.
Mr Speaker, the Honourable Member for Clacton used to say, leave means leave. But it seems his latest stunt is to leave this place just so that he can return as a fully fledged member after not just one referendum on his behaviour, Mr Speaker, but possibly two. So will the Deputy Prime Minister join us in urging the Chancellor to delay the Honourable Member for Clacton's resignation until the investigation is complete, so the good people of Clacton have all the facts before they cast their votes? And failing that, will he support our Clacton clause so that even once the Honourable Member ceases to be an MP, the investigations can continue?
Well, everyone can see that the Reform leader is just trying to distract from the fact that he's up to his neck in sleaze. He's got serious questions to answer and he can't run away from them. Labour isn't going to be part of this circus. I hear it's the people versus the establishment, the city trader Putin admiring professional politician who's pals with crypto billionaires versus Count Binface. There have been unqualified joke candidates in the past. Let's see what the people of Clacton decide.
Oh, hilarious. Be still, my aching sides. But I wonder, as David Lammy and all those fellow Labour frontbenchers nod their heads approvingly at this suggestion that Nigel Farage is up to his neck in sleaze, I wonder how many of them are wearing free clothes, spectacles, suits provided by Lord Ali, the Labour Party's Dr. Feel-Good donor. Talking of sleaze, I mean, talk about pot calling the kettle black, eh?
Unbelievable. They've had so many issues themselves over a long... I mean, since I've been a political journalist, Labour has been up to its neck in it in funding scandals, including, multi-million-pound donations linked to peerages. I remember very clearly the whole Cash for Honours scandal, which resulted in a long-running police investigation. No criminal charges were ever made over that. But, really, for them to be lecturing, I just think it's utterly pathetic to see the Lib Dems there asking for the very by-election that they've all been salivating over to be delayed till it suits them. Can you just delay this by-election till it's a convenient time for us to hold it?
Yeah, Daisy Cooper saying, "Oh, can you get the, it's not within her remit to order Nigel Farage to rescind his resignation." It's extraordinary, isn't it?
So this is the bit that I've enjoyed today. It's watching these people wailing and gnashing their teeth and trying to work out whether this will be a, net gain for Nigel Farage, net loss. How's it all going to play out? How's he going to cope with the guy in the bin? I think Reform have got many ways in which they can turn the bin situation in their favour, but make no mistake, they're going to have to be smart about it. Otherwise, it will become, genuinely does have that risk of it being very frustrating for Nigel if he's just followed around by people with bins all the time.
Well, talking of which, let me get your view as an experienced political commentator on this political colossus.
They can choose to run away from my beneficence and magnificence, or maybe they just noticed that Nigel is up to a rather peculiar hissy fit, and they're keeping their powder dry for a second by-election when, of course, the parliamentary committee reports. But interesting, you see, the thing is, that second election, which would cost 380 grand, will only happen if Nigel wins this one. So if you vote Binface, you save the British taxpayer £380,000 without me doing anything.
You want to know something about Count Binface? He's a raging lefty.
Well, no surprise there. Look, what I was to say about Count Binface is until he opened his mouth there, I mean...
as it were.
I might, opened his lid or whatever. I might have been tempted by his brilliant manifesto. I mean, I quite like the idea of mandatory 99p flake ice creams.
It's a really good idea, yeah.
I like his anyone who breaks, cyclists that break the rules need to be forced to go on unicycles. He's got some, no more VAR for football.
He wanted there to be extra points for conversions in rugby due to inflation.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in with so many of his policies, but then he opened his mouth just then, and that just kind of killed it for me. He just sounds like a weirdo lefty.
Yeah, well,
so I would not, far be it from me to give Binface political strategic advice, but I would say keep the lid on the bin, just be a man of mystery, a bin of mystery, and maybe you'll do better, because if you start betraying your ludicrous left-wing credentials, we're all going to be imagining what's under that bin, some beardy,
Exactly right. As I've been saying, Isabel, Count Binface, the O is optional. I'll leave you with that one. A great talking to you, as always. That's Isabel Oakeshott, Talk's brilliant international editor. Again, we're not having a go at Nigel Farage, but we need to talk about this story. Is it working out for him, or isn't it? Let's talk. We'll be taking your calls in just a little while. 0344 499 1000. Next up, though, before we go to the phones, we're going to talk about Hugh Edwards. The chairman of the BBC, Samir Shah, says, "Oh, please, Hugh, can you pay back that £200,000 of salary we gave you after you were charged with child sex offences? Can you give us it back? Please, if you've got an ounce of moral rectitude, please give it back." Well, Samir, he hasn't got an ounce of moral rectitude, so you're not going to get it back. Why don't you sue Hugh to get that 200 grand back, which in the end is sort of ours, isn't it? TV licence fee payers. Why doesn't the state broadcaster show a pair, grow a pair, show a bit of a backbone and sue Hugh Edwards for that money back that he will never give them? They need to get it back by legal means, don't you think? 0344 499 1000. We'll talk about that next. Stay tuned.
Good morning to you. This is Tour the Home of Common Sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Just breaking news in the last couple of moments. Extraordinary news. Not just that the police have arrived at the Sandringham estate where Prince Andrew, as was now Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, is currently living since being thrown out of the Windsor estate. The police have arrested Andrew Mountbatten wins it. It's an extraordinary, extraordinary revelation. And certainly what's been contained in the Epstein files as released in the last few weeks. It's his 66th birthday today. What a birthday present that is.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's go straight over to my next guest. He's spokesman for the Taxpayers Alliance, Benjamin Elks. Welcome, Ben.
Good evening, Kevin. Great to be with you.
Thank you for joining us. The story on the table is this, that the BBC chairman, Samir Shah, Dr. Samir Shah, has asked Hugh Edwards to repay the £200,000 salary he received after he was charged with child sex offences. A small coterie of BBC bosses knew about this somehow or other. They allowed his income to continue pouring on in to the tune of £200,000. Samir Shah, this has been an ongoing saga ever since this first emerged a year or so ago. The former Director General, Tim Davie, under intense pressure to do something about this. And basically the BBC's attitude has always been, well, we've asked him. We are asking him. And Samir Shah, the chairman today, said that if Hugh Edwards had, and I quote, an ounce of moral rectitude, he would repay this £200,000. Well, Mr. Shah, here's the problem. Hugh Edwards does not have an ounce of moral rectitude and will not repay you. So why are you embarrassing the corporation with these kind of rather pathetic begging bowl statements? And why doesn't the state broadcaster, the BBC, grow a pair and sue Hugh for this money that he should never have been paid? Why don't they do that, Ben?
I mean, this is really quite extraordinary. As you say, you know, we're talking about £200,000 that has been paid to Hugh Edwards while he was suspended, after he'd been arrested on these charges. And it's just absolutely outrageous that they've been unable to recover the money. Simply asking him to pay it back is not enough at all. You know, this is a guy who's been convicted of creating child sex abuse images of the highest, of the worst.
The worst kind, yeah.
You know, it's absolute disgrace.
So why doesn't? I mean, the BBC might argue, well, if we took him to court, it might cost more than this £200,000, and they could be right, but that isn't the point. I think there's a very serious point of principle to be made here, and in the end, retrieving this money, I think it's a duty on the behalf of the BBC, because in the end, this money is a TV licence fee payers' money. We pay for the BBC, and it should not be so lackadaisical with our money, should it?
Well, absolutely. You know, the amount we're talking about, 200 grand, that's around 1,000 license fee payers pay the license fees. So it's quite a lot of people who've seen their cash essentially go into Hugh Edwards' pocket. But I think you're right. There is a principle at stake here, and yes, it might cost us some money in order to get this back. But actually, is it right that we leave license fee payers' money in the hands of someone like Hugh Edwards? I think absolutely not.
Yeah, and while we're at it, as I say, I think that Samir Shah and other BBC executives, bigwigs who've spoken out on this, should stop humiliating themselves, stop embarrassing themselves by saying, oh, Hugh, please, can we have the money back? Would you give them £200,000 200 grand. You wouldn't, would you? And Hugh Edwards definitely won't. Take legal action, get that money off him. That's what I say. Ben, really good to talk to you. Thanks for coming on. Benjamin Elks there, spokesman for the Taxpayers Alliance organisation. What do you think about this? Isn't it about time the BBC got that money back by fair means or foul, or should I say fair means or legal means? Go to court, make a point, you know, make this guy give you back the money. It's our money. 03444991000. Let's go to break. When we come back, rest of the show, your calls. I'll read some messages as well. Don't know if you've got any WhatsApp voice notes, but if we have, I guarantee you I'll play them out. All of that still to come. Stay where you are.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. You can file this under It Never Rains But It Pours. Police, this is breaking news, folks, big breaking news. Police are investigating a political donation made to Robert Jenrick's campaign to become Conservative leader. This is being revealed by the iPaper. The Metropolitan Police has been examining claims that a £37,500 donation originated from a foreign donor following a referral from the Electoral Commission. The force has now launched an investigation into these allegations. Jenrick has repeatedly denied breaking any electoral laws. A spokesperson for Jenrick said, "These allegations are entirely false, but it is no surprise that an establishment determined to stop reform from delivering the change that this country so desperately needs would resort to making these demonstrably untrue claims." So police probing a £37,500 political donation allegedly to Jenrick's campaign to become Tory leader, a campaign he obviously lost. But that donation allegedly came from a foreign donor, which would, if it were true, break electoral laws. Police investigating that. Quite a big story, that. Let's go to the phone, shall we? Let's talk to John in Newcastle. Hello, John. What would you like to say?
Hello. Well, I would like to congratulate Nigel Farage.
Okay.
Here we have a man in his past. He's done very well in business. He's done very well in the political life that he's had, both in Europe and here. And I think it's just great news what he's doing today. He's putting it on. He's putting his situation on the line here. He's going to.
How does it get him out of trouble with the Parliamentary Standards Office?
Well, I wouldn't know how that would be the case.
Well, it doesn't get him out of trouble, does it?
No, it doesn't. But the reality is that he's a man that you can have a bit of respect for what he's been able to do. I have no respect for the Conservatives over the decades, and I've had no respect for Labour. And if that's all we have to go back to in this country, irrespective of what people think, go back to Tory, go back to Labour, failure, failure, and failure again. That's exactly what it's about. And we've got to give this chap a chance. And, you know, these people have been in 100 years. They're Tories, they're Labour, and even the Liberals who have been in 100 years and have never even had their own government since 1920 under David Lloyd George. So let the people of Clacton see do the right thing. And
well, they're bound to. They're bound to. He hasn't got any opponents. It's just him against Count Binface. So it's not really going to prove much when he wins that by-election, is it?
I think it's going to prove that...
That he can beat Count Binface.
Yeah.
Well, that's not that impressive, is it?
No, that not be the case.
So what is it going to prove, John, do you think?
I think it's just he's being reassured by the people that they're behind him. That's what I would think.
Yeah, you've got a point there. But then again, if they've got no one else to vote for, do we really know that they're behind him?
Well, what about your Conservatives and Liberals?
Well, they're not going to be in the by-election. It's only Count Binface.
Well, if you don't get into the fight, then you cannot win it. And these do.
Yeah, because they've deliberately extracted themselves from the equation. They're saying you want to trigger a by-election, we're not going to play.
Yeah, well, fair enough. But the point is that they just don't want they just don't want to because they know they'll get beat. I would think. Well, I'm convinced that they'll get beat.
Yeah, well, that's as maybe. He's still yodeling into an empty canyon now, isn't he? He's got no opponents.
Yeah, well, I think he's just trying to help to clear his name because they're all after him.
But when you say clear his name, let's get this straight. He hasn't broken, even if he's found to have broken parliamentary laws, he hasn't broken any laws, actual laws of the land.
Quite right.
Let's get that straight. Let's get that straight. Yeah, I mean, you know, he's a swashbuckler, and what he did yesterday was amazing. Doesn't look quite as good today, but let's follow that story with intense interest. John, really good call. Thank you for ringing. John in Newcastle. Let's speak to regular caller Jill in Cornwall. Jill, you want to talk about this interesting report revealing that 2 out of every 5 Brits do not believe that the Muslim community can be integrated properly with the rest of the country, and also that more than half of Brits believe that diversity is destroying our national identity. What are your thoughts on that, Jill?
Well, that says it all. I mean, I do believe that. I don't believe that the Muslims community is prepared to accept how the English culture is. I mean, we're getting problems with it already. Whether we like to say that or not, we are. We're getting people carrying knives, supposedly, knives associated with their religions. We're getting people demanding that they can cover up. We're getting a situation where we have Muslim courts of justice, for God's sake.
The Sharia courts. Let me put you this. This is what alarmed me about this report. It's being compiled by a former counter-extremism commissioner called Sarah Khan. Now, a poll within this report by the More in Common organisation, they revealed all this stuff about the suspicion of nearly half of Brits that integration is not possible. She sort of said, well, my research indicates something kind of different. She says my research indicates that 85% of Muslims who live in this country do want to properly integrate. And you think, well, that's good, that's good. And then you think again, you think, hang on, so 15% of Muslims who live in this country, British Muslims, do not want to integrate. That adds up to, Jill, 600, maybe more than 600,000 people. That's a lot of people living in this country who don't want to integrate. I think most Muslims, we're not talking about them, but we're talking about the noisy minority who clearly they want their own community, they want to make their own rules, their own laws, and they don't want anything to do with the rest of us, and that is a big worry, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And what I find distressing about it all is that we have a lot of Muslim councillors now. Well, here we go.
Well, you mean the sort of representatives for Gaza? You know, we've got about 7 independent MPs that are in there in Parliament on a Gaza ticket. This is totally wrong, I think.
They don't want to mix with our culture. They want to take over and become. Well, they want this country to have a Muslim.
That's what the extremists want. Let's make sure we're not pinpointing the entire Muslim community, but I do think there are Islamists among them, you know, who don't want to integrate and actually want to dominate. That's the charge against them.
Is, Kev, you cannot think that and say that without somebody accusing you.
Racist. That's right. Yeah, you're a racist. Islamophobic. And all that. Yeah.
Yes, so you have to accept it, supposedly, or else shut up about it. And I'm sorry, I'm not prepared to shut up about it. I feel that the culture is being stretched in this country, and we are being pushed into a situation where we're being told what we have to accept.
What we have to think, what we have to do. Do you agree with the other finding of this poll that more than half of Brits believe that diversity is destroying our national identity, that our national identity is disappearing thanks to our obsession with diversity?
Yes, it's right. And the thing is, this country and the people that lived in this country were normally quite laid back. You know, they were tolerant. They weren't driving the laws home all the time. But it's getting to the point where that if we don't say that this is not right or this is too much, then it's going ahead and we're having to accept it because somebody will accuse us of being racist, sexist, you name it. They will accuse us of being something.
Yeah. They think that shuts us all out. You're a racist. OK, I won't say anything. Well, you're Islamophobic. All right, keep my mouth shut. That's what they think. And it ain't. People like you and me around, Jill, it ain't going to happen. Really good call, as always. Thank you very much for ringing. That's Jill in Cornwall. Well, let's stay in Cornwall and let's talk to Karen. She's a new caller. Hello, Karen. What would you like to say?
Oh, hi, Kevin. Yes, following your conversation earlier on with Jade.
With Jade, the brave girl who's waived her anonymity to tell her harrowing story, really shocking story. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so the horrible man that's been released early, I can understand how there's not more people in a prison that have been sent in for non-violent or rapists, non-paedophiles that can't be released instead of releasing these evil people.
Yeah,
I've got an example for you. Like after Henry Novak, there was with the protest, there was a young lad, I think he was 21, he got sent to prison for 2 years because he threw a stone.
Oh, yeah, I saw that, that's exactly right. I was going to say that, Karen, you're exactly right. You know, we always say, oh, the jails are full, we have to let out all these rapists, these murderers, these killers, manslaughter, you know, violent criminals, because the jails are full. Well, they always seem to find cell space for, you know, people who post nasty things, like Lucy Connolly, who posts nasty things on social media. They always seem to find jail space for these people who riot, that Keir Starmer doesn't like. So I'm not sure that I'm buying it that they have to release rapists. This guy, when he was 24 years old, raped 14-year-old Jade twice, ruined her life. She says she's tormented to this day. She grieves for the childhood that was stolen from her. And he's going to serve, because he's going to be let out early release in September, just about 2 years for that. That's a disgrace, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely disgusting. There is, like that one example of a lad that threw the stone. He was 21, no previous convictions, the stone didn't hit anybody and he's in prison for 2 years. What's the point of putting him in prison? No benefit to for
it's so Keir Starmer can prove a point. You know, it's out of control. It's ridiculous. What we should do, Karen, is as a matter of some urgency, start building prisons. Stop letting out very dangerous men and start building prisons so we can house these people, cage these people who should not be walking amongst us. Karen, really good first call. Don't make it your last call. Good to talk to you. Karen in Cornwall. Let's go to break. When we come back, more of your calls, more of your messages. Stay where you are.
Good morning to you. This is Towards the Home of Common Sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Just breaking news in the last couple of moments. Extraordinary news. Not just that the police have arrived at the Sandringham estate where Prince Andrew, as was now Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, is currently living since being thrown out of the Windsor estate. The police have arrested Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. It's an extraordinary revelation. And certainly what's been contained in the Epstein files as released in the last few weeks. It's his 66th birthday today. What a birthday present that is.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
By the way, just to prove that this situation is not good for reform, a new poll has put reform into third place now, and for the first time put Labour in the lead. So the Burnham bounce appears to be happening. Nigel Farage's party down to third place in the new poll, which would mean that it could not win a general election. So again, you know, I'm just saying this, you know, objectively. This is not a good look. It's not playing well for reform, what's going on. I admire what Farage has done, but is it going to succeed? That is the question. Richard says, what is your problem with Farage? If Reform had anything about themselves, they would never talk to you and Peter Cardwell again. Well, you know, they might say this, but how do I know they keep their promise? You're all full of he says. Well, Richard, we're not Farage fanboys, you know. That's not our job. You know, we bring you the news, and Farage is all over the front pages, he's all over the telly and the radio for a particular reason. What are we supposed to do? Not cover that story? We're not here to be Nigel Farage's fans. We're here to cover the stories, OK? Right, you can be his fans. That's not our job. Testy says Count Bimface is a Poundland Darth Vader without the scuba gear. Try as I might, I cannot take him seriously. I think you'll find, Testy, a few of us find it fairly difficult to take Count Bimface seriously. This is Tanya. She says, the establishment have stitched Farage up like a kipper. He will be found guilty by the Standards Committee. We'll have to fight another by-election where they will throw all they have to fight him. He will lose his seat and be out of politics for good. It was a huge mistake. I'm not sure about that, Tanya. I wouldn't go that far. I mean, if he has to go through a second by-election, I still think he'll win it. And that will be a true triumph for you. Don't, look, I'll tell you this much, never write Nigel Farage off. He's a clever man and he knows what he's doing, but he is in a bit of a sticky predicament at the moment. This is from Robin Hastings. I just want to make the brief point that Nigel will be on the stump campaigning during Burnham's first couple of weeks in office, and he will have a huge platform to lambast him every single day. It certainly will be a very brief honeymoon for Burnham. Keep up the good work. We will, Rob, and yeah, that's a good point. You know, this by-election, farcical though it is, will give Farage a platform, an entertaining summer platform, Clacton-on-Sea, holiday resort and all that, in which to attack Burnham. And I suspect that our focus will move away from Nigel Farage's finances to our dreadful socialist left-wing Prime Minister, who I wish all the best, but I suspect he's going to ruin the country. I really do. Sorry to be so pessimistic. Let's go back to the phones. Let's talk to Karen in East Sussex. Hi, Karen.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm all right. What would you like to say?
Good. Right, I'd like to just sort of unpack a little point that I think's going over the heads of people a little bit here.
Go on.
So, Kimmy Badenoch says that no one is bigger than Parliament. She repeated it about 6 times in her interview to GB News yesterday.
To what? Never heard of them. But I'm just joking. So yeah, go on.
She said no one is bigger than Parliament. She repeated it.
Yes.
So she should be right. But look at what her party, Labour and Restore Britain are doing here, because this is the bit that's going over people's heads. Not fielding a candidate is lawful. That's fine. There's many reasons people don't field candidates.
I mean, it's up to you whether or not you're standing in an election.
Absolutely.
Up to a party,
I make the point. Not fielding a candidate is lawful.
Of course it is, yeah.
Now, where it diverges is calling this election a gimmick, a stunt, not real, and calling a future election that might never happen the real one. Because what that does is that delegitimises a lawful, already triggered process.
That is an interesting point, Karen. Really interesting.
It vetoes it because the timing and the likely outcome don't suit them. Now, parliamentary procedure assumes opposition. That's their role.
Yeah.
And if you don't like what an MP stands for, you field a candidate and you make your case to the voters. You don't deny them the vote because it doesn't suit you. Using non-participation to delegitimise and veto an election.
Yeah, but they're allowed to do that, aren't they? They're allowed to do that, aren't they?
No,
that's why they're doing it. It's not against any rules for them to boycott this election.
What they're doing is contemptuous.
I could agree with that, but what I'm saying is they're not doing anything wrong.
They're not doing anything wrong by not fielding a candidate.
Why should they play? Why should they necessarily, Karen, play Farage's game? They basically said, "Sorry, Nigel, we don't want to play."
They're playing. Let me just.
Why should they necessarily play Nigel Farage's game?
Because let me explain what the greater problem is here.
Yeah.
They're playing a game of their own, right? By delegitimising, by using non-participation. They're using non-participation to delegitimise and veto an election.
Can I say, what's your point, Karen? Yes, they are. What's your point?
My point is the language is doing a lot of heavy lifting here, because my point is that Kemi Badenoch says no one is above Parliament. Then she uses what's available to her to veto a lawful parliamentary process.
Karen, I totally take your point, but it's a perfectly legitimate tactic by the Tories, by Labour, by the Lib Dems to just boycott this, and for that matter, Restore Britain and Rupert Lowe. They can do this if they want, and they have done it, and it has made things a bit more awkward for Nigel Farage. You know, there is this point. He wanted them to play. They don't want to play. So it hasn't worked out quite as well for him as he'd have hoped. But as I always say, done better against Nigel Farage. It's going to be an interesting summer. Karen, great call. Thank you very much. Please call me again. That's Karen in East Sussex, making a really interesting point there. Shall we talk to Paul in Liverpool? Yes, let's. Hi, Paul.
Hi, Kev. Just about everyone screaming that the guy is a criminal who gave Nigel the money 10 years ago or something. Everyone in this country knows criminals. So do you. You know, most of them are pretty cool.
Nearly all my friends are criminals. No, seriously. No, seriously. Actually, a fair few of them are. But you know, the point about this George Cottrell thing, you know, posh George. Yeah. There's nothing wrong technically with Nigel Farage or Restore taking George's money. The fact that he served time, I think, in America as a fraudster, you know, he served his debt to society. He's perfectly able to donate money to a political party or political cause, and he's done that. So all this, he took money from a convicted fraudster. So what? The problem, Paul, is did he take money from George Cottrell or for that matter, Christopher Harborne, who gave him that £5 million? Did he take that money in the 12 months leading up to him becoming an MP in 2024? Did he take that money and not declare it, and should he have declared it?
He probably should have declared it, but you know what? It'll work itself out. But the point is, what I'm saying is, no one cares about criminals. Just don't. The rest of the murder.
I don't care about George. I don't care about George Cottrell being a convicted fraudster at all. I don't care about it. He's paid his debt to society. You know, that's what happens.
Criminals are pretty, you know, most criminals are pretty cool. It's obviously the dodgy ones, murders and all that. Get rid of that lot. But you know, most people duck and dive. You know, just life, isn't it? You know.
Yeah, I guess so. Paul, very good to talk to you. Now, I think Peter Cardwell is going to be coming in just a little while. He's going to tell you what he's got lined up for your entertainment from 7 o'clock until 10 p.m. It should be a lively show. Funny enough, we've all been competing today here at Talk to book Count Binface. But he's difficult to pin down. I think maybe he can't hear. When we ring him up, he can't hear because he's got a dustbin over his head or something. He was on BBC Breakfast Time this morning. We're going to try and get him on to find out what his political strategy, what his outlook, what his philosophy is. But he's not. He's more than just a comedy figure, folks. He's a lefty, so you have been warned. Now, once again, amazing story at Wimbledon. Arthur Furry, the 400 to 1 outsider, 114th in the world, wild card entry into Wimbledon, has made it to the semi-finals. He beat his opponent in their quarter-finals today. Amazing story there. Peter Cardwell's in the